2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the Play Show, yet not overly ostentatious studios of CBS Sports Radio here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor of 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on in to a Wednesday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all of our great local CBS Sports Radio affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 158, that free Odyssey app, and, of course, YouTube as well. 855-212-4CBS is the number to jump on in. 855-212-4227. You can always get at me on Instagram, where I'm straight flexing, or via the good old cesspool of Twitter, at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. Michael Samter, Stuart Kovacs, along the other way. We're rocking and rolling all the way up until 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Whole lot to do today. Coming up 20 minutes from now, we'll be joined by the head football coach at Kentucky, in Mark Stoops, who I think is a top 10 coach in the country. I believe Mark Stoops still continuously is one of the more underrated coaches in the country. And this Kentucky program, once again, is bumping with Mark Stoops as their head football coach. And they have a big matchup this weekend against a Georgia team where I don't want to call Georgia vulnerable, but Georgia doesn't look as dominant as they've been the last 2 years. They're still the number one team in the country. They still haven't lost the game. But up against their two best opponents so far, so South Carolina, then also Auburn, the games have been close. So we'll see if Kentucky could pull off the upset this weekend. And then coming up later on in the show at 4:40 p.m. Eastern, 1:40 p.m. Pacific, we'll chat it up with MLB 11-time Gold Glove Award winner and Omar Vizquel with the postseason underway. But right out of the gate, I got to start with a little college football. And this weekend, I think there's three coaches that are under a tremendous amount of pressure, where we're going to find out where these coaches are at with their program. You have Brent Venables, who has his Oklahoma team who's undefeated, getting ready for Red River up against Texas. You have Jimbo Fisher, who lost to Miami a few weeks ago. Now we'll see if they could find a way to get a big win up against Alabama. And then you also have maybe the most disappointing team in the country in LSU, who was supposed to be a national championship contender, looked like they were going to make the college football playoff before the start of the year, and LSU has already lost 2 games this season, and now we're trying to wonder, how badly is this ship going to sink, or will they find a way to get some smooth sailing and salvage this season? But LSU is going to Missouri, and Missouri's been a surprise team. They're ranked 21st in the country. Let's start with Venables. Now, he's going up against Texas. We know Texas right now is ranked as the 3rd best team in the country. Texas has the most impressive win this season in college football, going to Tuscaloosa and taking care of the Alabama Crimson Tide. But for Brent Venables, he waited forever to take that opportunity to become a head coach. And I believe that everyone thought when Brent Venables finally left Clemson after being the right-hand man for however many years with Dabo Swinney with the Clemson Tigers, we all believed that Brent Venables, it's inevitable that he's going to be a phenomenal coach and a phenomenal head coach. And just sometimes when you are a dominant assistant, a dominant defensive coordinator, it doesn't always translate into being a successful head coach. And last year for Oklahoma, in what was a wide-open Big 12, where TCU, who ended up going to the college football playoff, didn't even win the Big 12 conference, as you had Kansas State with Chris Kleiman and maybe the most underappreciated Big 12 conference champion ever take care of the Big 12. You look at Oklahoma, they should have been right there, and they weren't. And not only were they not there, they were 6-7. And 6-7 for where the standard has become for Oklahoma with the last coach that was there in Lincoln Riley. It seemed as if each and every year they won the Big 12 and they were in the college football playoff. But Lincoln Riley leaves, and Oklahoma finishes the season after a bowl loss, being a game under 500 at 6-7. And Oklahoma has started off the year where they haven't lost any games. Now they went up against Arkansas State, SMU, Tulsa, Cincinnati, Iowa State. Like, some of those opponents aren't the easiest of opponents, but they really haven't been tested yet. And now you go play Red River up against Texas, where Texas is projected to win the Big 12. They were my pick before the year to win the Big 12. And not only that, you look at this Texas team where they're humming right now, and their quarterback, Quinn Ewers, is holding off even the thought of Arch Manning getting on the field. And if Oklahoma could pull off the upset in this one, we're going to change the way that we look at Brent Venables. Because right now, I think everyone is like, I don't know what Brent Venables, after his first year, is going to be as a head coach. And it only gets tougher for Oklahoma because this is their final season in the Big 12, and they're off to the SEC after this year. So the competition is going to increase in intensity. But if Oklahoma can win this game, I do believe the take on Monday is going to be, wow, Brent Venables is as good as advertised when he got the job a year ago. And not only that, Oklahoma will catapult themselves into the driver's seat of winning the Big 12. And not only that, but potentially being a college football playoff team. Because if Oklahoma wins this game, after that, you play UCF, Kansas, Oklahoma State, West Virginia, BYU, and TCU. There's a lot of good programs there inside the Big 12, but Oklahoma, if they win this game, won't be an underdog the rest of the way when you look at those games after this one coming up on October 7th, Saturday, against Texas. So this is a big litmus test on where Brent Venables is as a head coach, and then also where Dylan Gabriel is, the former UCF quarterback, as a quarterback now, year number 2 at Oklahoma. So huge week for Oklahoma. No one's picking them. Everyone's going to be saying, horns up, here come the Longhorns. Everyone's buying into Texas, Sam Ehlinger style. We're back. And we're going to see if that can continue for Texas or if Oklahoma makes a big statement this weekend. Personally, I like Texas in the game. Now, Jimbo Fisher, his seat should be on fire. The only reason why Jimbo Fisher still has his job is because the Aggies would owe him a whole lot of money, like $70+ million, if they wanted to move on from him, where in that COVID year, he had his one great season at A&M, and then he cashed in a big way. Texas A&M is a team that no one's talking about right now, and we probably wouldn't be talking about Texas A&M if it wasn't for the fact that they're playing Alabama this upcoming weekend, because Texas A&M is a team, after they lost to Miami and got spanked by Miami in that second half, 48-33, that they're out of sight, out of mind. Where going into the season, we all knew A&M had a lot of talent and was one of the more talented teams in the nation, but we said the same things last year about A&M, and last year was a complete dumpster fire for Jimbo Fisher and the Aggies. But let me just illustrate a point here. And I'm going to bring up a team that I'm going to about to talk about in a second in the LSU Tigers. Last year, LSU, if you recall, they lost their first game of the season up against Florida State by 1 point. Remember, they missed the extra point at the end of the game. LSU, after that game, was clowned. They were trolled. They were left for dead. And everyone was saying, oh, this Brian Kelly and his family era at LSU was not going to work out. And last year, LSU, I know they didn't win the SEC because that did go to Georgia, but LSU was in the SEC championship game. I'm just going to throw this out there. And let me preface it by saying, I don't believe in Texas A&M. I don't trust Jimbo Fisher. I'm not a fan of Jimbo Fisher. I think he's one of the more overrated, arrogant coaches in the country that refuses to take any accountability when things don't go his way. But maybe that game in week 2 up against Miami was the best thing to happen for A&M because it took all the pressure nationally with the tension. There's still pressure on Jimbo Fisher because his seat should be on fire. But when you look at the players, everyone stopped talking and stopped monitoring A&M. And since then, they lost their quarterback in Connor Wigman, but they were able to have a good backup in Johnson, who was at LSU, and Max Johnson, Brad Johnson's kid, who had a big-time season at LSU statistically when the team wasn't good, and now he's trying to create this second chapter at A&M, and I'm not saying that this is going to be like Michael Penix and Bo Nix, where Michael Penix was done at Indiana, goes to Washington, has been thrown into the Heisman Trophy conversation the last 2 years, and is looking like he'll be a top 10 draft pick. We all remember Bo Nix at Auburn, extremely underwhelming, and now he's at Oregon, and that Oregon team has really taken off with him as the quarterback the last 2 years. But you look at someone like Johnson, the quarterback, who the last 2 weeks got a victory up against Auburn and got a victory up against Arkansas. This could be a moment for A&M where they start to show signs that maybe they could be the LSU of a year ago that had a bad loss early and then finds a way to take care of business. And the next thing you know, you wake up and you go, how the heck did Texas A&M get to the SEC championship game? Let me be clear. I don't think that's going to happen with Texas A&M. But with that being said, there is something scary about a team that we've all written off and have all said that they're done and have written the eulogy for. They could show the nation this weekend that they're a team that what they put on display up against Mario Cristobal and the Hurricanes wasn't the authentic version of A&M in 2023. Now, just because you beat Alabama this weekend, it doesn't get much easier after that. You do have Tennessee still. You do have Shane Beamer, South Carolina Gamecocks. You play Ole Miss, and we know Ole Miss is a solid football team. You have Mississippi State, Abilene Christian to end the season, and then you get the big game up against LSU. Now, that brings me to the Tigers this weekend. Brian Kelly, it's been so weird. It's been up and down, up and down. He gets to LSU. He has the fake accent. It was an ugly and a messy and a tumultuous divorce from Notre Dame, and people have been rooting against Brian Kelly. But as I just said to you, last year at the end of the year, we were all talking positively about Brian Kelly because he got to the SEC championship game in year 1. Now in year 2, this is off to a disastrous start where you are not even competitive against Florida State in the second half, a team that you only lost to by an extra point a year ago. And then last weekend up against Ole Miss, you lose in a shootout. This LSU team is by far and away too talented to be sitting there at 3-2 after 5 games of this season. And they should beat Missouri this weekend. But that is like, if it was an NFL team, you'd be saying this is the Super Bowl for Missouri. This is the national championship game for Missouri going up against LSU. If Brian Kelly loses this game this weekend, everyone on Monday is going to be reverting back to the takes that we all had when Brian Kelly was initially hired at LSU. And I actually am someone that I don't love Brian Kelly, but I'm able to push that aside and realize the guy is a heck of a football coach, where before the season I was saying, if you give me 3 coaches for the next 5 years that I'm going to trust their programs the most, it's going to be Kirby Smart at Georgia, it's going to be Nick Saban at Alabama, and then it's going to be Brian Kelly at LSU. But for Brian Kelly, they're not going to win the SEC. They're not going to be going to a national championship game this year or the college football playoff, as a lot of us thought they were capable of before the season, because you already have 2 losses, and they still have to play Alabama. You still have to go up against A&M, Florida, Auburn. But you look at this LSU team, they have to win this weekend, because if they lose back-to-back games, we're going to start examining Brian Kelly and saying maybe he's just not fit for this LSU job. And it's already wild that he hasn't even been there for 2 years, and people have vacillated back and forth about Brian Kelly being a good coach and then Brian Kelly being a bad coach as well. So those are 3 coaches that are under some pressure this weekend and can make big statements. And Brent Venables can make a statement that things are working at Oklahoma. Jimbo Fisher can maybe make the statement that he'll be like the LSU of a year ago. And for Brian Kelly, I don't think you make a statement with the victory, but it holds off the avalanche of criticism that will come your way if we are sitting here in the studio on Monday, right here on CBS Sports Radio, and we're talking about LSU with back-to-back losses. Zach Gelb here with you on CBS Sports Radio. We will take a break right now, and when we do return, Kentucky, what a program they are. Mark Stoops has done a phenomenal job with that football program. He's a top 10 coach, one of the most underrated coaches in the country, and this weekend they have a huge matchup against number 1 Georgia with Carson Beck and Brock Bowers. We're going to talk to the head football coach at Kentucky, Mark Stoops, when the Zach Gelb Show does continue off and running on this very busy Wednesday, right here, but where else? CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Now back to the Zach Gelb Show.
Huge game this upcoming weekend in college football. Kentucky's ranked 20th in the country, and they'll go up against number 1 Georgia. Let's go out to the guest line right now and welcome in a man that I think is a top 10 coach in the country. He's the head coach of the Kentucky Wildcats, and that is Mark Stoops here with us on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Coach, congrats on a big victory up against Florida. Appreciate you taking a few minutes of your day today. How you been?
Thank you. Yeah, doing good, thanks. You know, it's very short-lived. It was a great game this past Saturday, but then you're right back at it, only getting ready for the Georgia Bulldogs at their place. So no rest for the weary.
We'll get to Georgia in just a second, but I'd be remiss if I didn't start with your running back in Ray Davis transferring into the program. I remember when he was at my alma mater to start his career in Temple, but he had 280 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns, and then a receiving touchdown too. Just how about the impact and what he's brought to your program?
Yeah, Ray has really been special. He's a great young man, obviously very mature, brings a physicality to our team, and you know, I think it was nice to see him put it all together at the right time. I mean, he has shown, you know, his abilities throughout the beginning of this year, but last week, what a complete game, and really got off to a fast start. It really started, you know, with the screen pass. You know, it was maybe a 10-yard run or whatever, but heck, he got it in the end zone, and it was an impressive catch and run after catch, and then, of course, he got the run game going as well. But he's a great young man, and he's off to a great start for us.
We're in a new world with the transfer portal. Some coaches have adapted. Some coaches haven't done a great job at it. Your backfield is Devin Leary, who's a transfer. We just talked about your running back, too. You've built something really special here at Kentucky, but when you go through the transfer portal, how do you know that a kid's going to be the right fit for you guys?
Yeah, we make sure we get the right ones that fit our culture. We feel like we do have a very strong culture. So, you know, I think we vet players before they come in, but also they transform and adapt to our culture very fast. I don't really have to very often. When you talk about Devin Leary, you talk about Ray Davis, you talk about Eli Cox, our left tackle, you know, who came in. Those are mature young men. They fit us. They fit our culture. They've been great additions. We really needed them. You know, let's face it. We live in a world of free agency. I didn't create it, but we have to live by it and do the very best we can. So there's been some great additions.
Coach Mark Stoops here with us. Coach, you know, when you have the consistency and the program like you built at Kentucky, everyone's going to say, when is coach going to leave? When is coach going to leave? You haven't done that. Why is that? Why have you remained loyal to Kentucky and what you built there?
Kentucky, just like you said, I've helped build this with a lot of help from a lot of different people, but we have invested an awful lot into our program. And it's been 11 years, and so I'm very loyal to this place. I feel like it's a very good relationship between the fan base and myself, the players, the community. This is my home now, and it's just a great place. It's a hard place to leave. And this is right for me. This is right for Mark Stoops and at the time, and I'm very happy here, and really appreciate all the players, the coaches, the past, present. The people that have worked hard to put us in this position.
Coach Mark Stoops here with us. All right, let's get to Georgia. When we start with them, we talk about Brock Bowers. Last weekend, he looked like Rob Gronkowski and Travis Kelce all combined into one. When you see him on the tape, just what stands out to you about the great tight end at Georgia? Yeah,
I've said it several times during my press conferences this week. I mean, I'm not sure I've ever seen somebody just like him. You mentioned Gronk because I had mentioned it earlier just because I watched him up close. I was at I was at Arizona when he played in college, and I think they're very different. I wouldn't want to compare anybody to Gronk, and I really wouldn't want to compare anybody to Brock Bowers. He's a very unique player, but both just amazing at their position, that's for sure. Both amazing players, but he is truly something special. He makes plays. When he's covered, he had back-to-back one-handed catches a week ago. Just the guy is a really unique player and a special player.
When you turn on the tape and you get ready for the Georgia quarterback and Carson Beck, what has impressed you so far, Coach Mark Stoops?
Yeah, Carson has really done a great job. He knows he's got a lot of good playmakers around him. And, when you think of Georgia, you think of a physical team that always has great backs. So they've just done a nice job of spreading it around, and he's managing the game really well for them.
I don't know how much of the conversation that you heard leading into this one when you go up against number one Georgia. We know how dominant of a program Georgia is, winning the national championship the last 2 years. But since they didn't blow out South Carolina, since they didn't blow out Auburn, people go, oh, Georgia is vulnerable. When you hear that as someone has to prepare up against them this week, what goes through your mind?
Well, they're just waiting to put it all together. I mean, I say it about my own team. You're not going to play 12 great games. You're just not. You have to be able to win in difficult environments. You have to be able to win on the road. I know how much Kirby respects and knows how difficult it is to win road games in the SEC, and I think they also understand how difficult it is for opponents to play at home. I think they're different. They're definitely more attacking at home. I'm sure they're just waiting to put it all together. You have to be good enough when you're not at your best, and they're pretty darn good.
Last thing I'll ask you, Coach Mark Stoops, when you go from the emotional high of a victory against Florida, and now you have to go right to Georgia, how do you kind of reel your kids in back quickly? Because you need a full week's worth of preparation to have a shot up against Georgia with the program they have.
Without a doubt. That's a great point and something that has me concerned. I had to get after the team yesterday because, I didn't feel like it was up to our standards for a typical, very physical, tough Tuesday practice. I'm about 5 minutes away from walking out on the practice field right now, and we have to have a better day. We have to have a strong belief system that we could go in there and win, and the only way you should feel confident is by your preparation. And so we need to pick it up. And so, I challenged the team, actually threw in an extra team meeting today, pointed a few things out to them and got some extra motivation in there just because, it takes a lot, to go in there and prepare the right way. Everybody wants to win on Saturday. It's a matter of what we're going to do throughout the week to put ourselves in a position to be successful come Saturday.
Well, Coach, I'll let you get to the practice field. We appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
There he is, the coach of the 20th ranked Kentucky Wildcats, and Mark Stoops joining us on CBS Sports Radio. I thought a very interesting message at the end because this is a team that Mark Stoops has built at Kentucky where they've had multiple 10-win seasons, right? He's been able to challenge John Calipari if you go back to last year when Calipari said Kentucky's a basketball school. That's like the most obvious statement ever. We think Kentucky, we think of basketball first, and Stoops was annoyed at that, and Calipari had to eventually apologize. So it shows you to how long of a great stride that he has built there and how much of a jump that the Kentucky program has taken. And now, right, you get a big victory up against Florida. I loved them last weekend. I thought Kentucky was going to win the game, but I didn't think it was going to be 33-14. And everyone this week says, oh, what a great win for Kentucky, beating Florida. We love the job that Mark Stoops done. And you know that you can't really enjoy that victory really for that long. And after Sunday did occur, you have to move on, because we could say what we want about Georgia. And you could look at Georgia and say they are vulnerable. But just because a team is vulnerable doesn't mean that they're going to be a team that won't be in the national championship game again. Because last year, we said the same thing about Kansas City. We all said at one point of the season, oh, the Chiefs' offense looks vulnerable. And remind me who won the Super Bowl last year. It was the Kansas City Chiefs, and Patrick Mahomes won another Super Bowl. So you know if you're Kentucky, you need a full week worth of effort. And I thought that was a little alarming, and it shows that the coach isn't sensing it from his kids, that the effort is there when he had to really tear into them yesterday. And maybe this is going to change the rest of the week. But I can't wait for that football game on Saturday, because we're going to really find out how vulnerable this Georgia team is if this game is going to be right down to the wire and a dogfight until the end, because this is now a Georgia team that when they've gone up against two really good opponents, when you look at Auburn and Brock Bowers ran right through them at the end of the game. You see the South Carolina game at halftime, they were trailing and they turned it up in the second half. They've been able to find a way to get it done, but eventually, if you keep on putting your hand on the stove, you're going to get burned, and you're going to know that that stove is piping hot. So this is a matchup this week where you have a good Kentucky team with a good backfield. We know Stoops' team will always play defense, and I hope that this is a one-score game late in the fourth quarter, and we'll see who's going to find a way to find a way to get to the finish line with the victory. All righty, we'll take a break here on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. When we come on back, we'll do a little Take 5 Wednesday. I'll give you my top 5 teams in the NFL and college football. But first up, standing by with the latest CBS Sports Radio update, here is the Act Man, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
And this report is sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Insurance for motorcycles, boats, and RVs for protection on the road and on the water. See how much you can save at 1-800-PROGRESSIVE and Progressive.com. Day 2 of the wild card round is underway. The Rays and Rangers are scoreless in the bottom half of the second. Tampa Bay committed 4 errors yesterday, and today in the first, Manuel Margot played one into what should have been a routine out into a double. No error on the play, but they were able to get out of that inning, and they are scoreless in the second. Coming up shortly, the Twins, after halting an 18-game postseason skid, they'll try to finish off the Blue Jays, as yesterday's win a nice start, but manager Rocco Baldelli said that yesterday's gone.
I think it's fine to celebrate that. I think there's not one person in our clubhouse who doesn't realize that there is a lot of work still to be done. And as soon as we change and shower up and eat dinner and head home and go to bed, we'll reset.
The 2 NL games take place tonight, with the Brewers trying to even things up with the Diamondbacks, and the Phillies took control early against the Marlins and tried to advance with a victory tonight. Disgruntled James Harden reportedly practicing with the Sixers after asking for a trade over the summer and skipping the team's media day. I'm Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
It's time for Texas A&M to cut bait with Jimbo Fisher. Jimbo Fisher is really the John Gruden of college football. He's an overrated coach who's living off one championship. Jimbo Fisher had all this talent last year, couldn't win. This year, going up against Miami. You're a better team than Miami, and Miami punched you in the mouth. Jimbo Fisher stinks. You got to pay him the money, hold your nose when you do so, and say, don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you.
Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
You'll learn something about me. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. When coaches lose and they don't take accountability and they make a lame-ass excuse, that's what really sets me off. So that's why you heard that rejoin there with Jimbo Fish. I'll never forget, years ago, James Franklin lost to Ohio State. And when he lost the game with horrible play calling with Ricky Ronnie and James Franklin, he gets in front of the podium and he delivers like a 5 or 6 minute speech. And he's talking about how they lost the game because kids aren't all bought in and they're not sitting in the front row of class. And I'm like, yeah, that's where I know that we always ignore the student part of student athlete a lot in college sports. It's because the kids weren't sitting in the front row of class is why your coaching staff made idiotic decision after idiotic decision. So that perturbs me a lot with college coaches. And you see it sometimes in professional sports, but it mainly happens with the ego of college coaches where you will lose a game. Everyone knows why you lost the game. And because you always try to send a message out in the postgame with recruiting, you end up thinking you're the smartest person in the world and that there was something else that caused you guys to lose when it was just simple why Penn State lost that game against Ohio State. By the way, it's time to Ask the Pros, where you, the listener, gets to ask us a question brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Simply tweet your question at CBS Sports Radio or at Zach Gelb using the hashtag #AskThePros. Be listening later in the show when we might answer your question. You could think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. O'Reilly Auto Parts. All righty, we do this segment every Wednesday right here on CBS Sports Radio. It is the Zach Gelb Show. We call it Take 5 Wednesday. I give you my top 5 teams in college football and also the NFL.
As the dust settles from last week's games, it's time to look at which teams are rising and which are falling.
And there's an interception.
Zach ranks his top 5 NFL and college football teams on this week's edition of Take 5, only on the Zach Gelb Show.
So we've done a lot of college football right out of the gate. Mark Stoops just joined us about 15 minutes ago. So let's start with the pro teams, and then we'll circle back in and end out this segment with a little college football. In at number 5, how about them Cowboys? With the drama, Dallas choking Cowboys in the 5th spot. They've been phenomenal for the most part through the first 4 games of the season. They're 3-1. And the Cowboys have basically run 2 playbooks this year. They blow out a team and the game's not even close, or they end up losing the game. We've seen the playbook of them blowing out teams and winning the game in a big margin 3 times this year. A stunning loss to the Arizona Cardinals 2 weeks ago. But they showed up against the New England Patriots, who are an inferior football team to the Dallas Cowboys right now. And Dallas made sure after the first 30 minutes of that game that game was over. Now for Dallas, the reason why they're not higher up on this list is you just look at the quality of opponents that they did play. You know, they played the Jets, they played the Giants, they played the Patriots, and their one loss was to the Cardinals. Probably all 4 of those teams are going to be picking in the top 10, at least the top 15 of the draft. Now you get your first legit opponent. You'll see where they fall in the rankings. One of the better teams in the NFL coming up on Sunday Night Football on NBC, where the Dallas Cowboys head to Santa Clara and they go up against the San Francisco 49ers. The football team in San Francisco did send home the Dallas Cowboys the last 2 seasons. Remember the playoff game in Jerry's World 2 years ago where they couldn't get the ball snapped. And then last year, that was a championship performance by the Cowboys defense, but Dak Prescott was allergic to the end zone in that game up against the 49ers, and he was the main reason why the Cowboys lost that game. There is not a single player or a single team under more pressure this week than the Dallas Cowboys, because if the Cowboys don't win this game, you look at them and the take on Monday would be, what a fraudulent team that is. Wow, they tease you again, where you look at Dallas and it's okay. This is a football team that you see how great they could be with the way that their offense looks and how intimidating their defense is, but you got to beat the big boys, and you start off with an enormous test this weekend against the San Francisco 49ers. You don't win a Super Bowl this weekend, right? Like, you don't punch your ticket to the Super Bowl this weekend. Clearly, it's the first weekend of October, but with that being said, you can enable the doubters this week if you go on out and you lay an egg or you lose this game. So let's see what Dallas is made of this week. The Cowboys are in at number 5. In at number 4, it's a team that I give the benefit of the doubt to. They have not looked great. They only have one loss on the season, and it was by 1 point without Chris Jones and Travis Kelce at Arrowhead, where they did drop that game to the Detroit Lions. But I put the Kansas City Chiefs in at 4, where I wasn't impressed for the first time this year with the Chiefs' defense. I thought the Chiefs' defense is really going in the right direction and moving in the right direction. And then you allowed Zach Wilson to have a career game. But here's why I'm still bullish on Kansas City. It's because through the first 4 games of the season, their offense has not clicked yet. Their offense hasn't started to fire on all cylinders. And if that's the biggest problem with the Kansas City Chiefs, it's almost as if you have a good problem, because you know they'll find a way to iron out the kinks when you have Eric Bieniemy no longer there and Matt Nagy now calling the plays with Andy Reid. And as long as you have 15 and 87 healthy, you're always going to be a team that no one is going to want to play, because we all say, oh, yeah, the Chiefs are vulnerable. They could be got. We've seen Kansas City year in and year out be down, and not only be down in the playoffs, but be down big. Like, you look at the performance against the Texans, they were down 20-plus points. They won the game. It wasn't even them trailing at halftime. Tennessee a few years ago, Buffalo as well. In the Super Bowl a few years back before COVID hit us, when they're down 10 with 7.5 to play, and they always find a way to get the job done. So eventually this Chiefs offense will look like the Chiefs offense that we've grown accustomed to the last few years. But the Chiefs are in at 4. Number 3, the Buffalo Bills. That is a performance by the Bills last week that says, we're not dead, we're not going anywhere, and the Buffalo Bills are back, and they make you want to shout. That's what Buffalo showed you this past weekend. Because remember, this offseason, they were coming off a game against the Cincinnati Bengals where the Bengals walked into Buffalo in Orchard Park. They said, we're going to set up our own couch. Actually, no, we're not even going to need to set up our own couch. We don't even need to bring in the furniture. We're going to sit down on your couch. We're going to go into your fridge. We're going to open up the beer. We're going to see your woman. We're going to have her sit down with us and have some good times. And we're just going to take over as the new kings. We're going to take over as the new kings of Buffalo. That's what the Cincinnati Bengals did. And the Bills were embarrassed in that football game. You had Stephon Diggs freaking out afterwards. It carried over into the offseason programs where you start off with mandatory minicamp where Stephon Diggs was excused, not excused, whatever happened there. And there was all this chaos with the Bills. And then to add a little insult to injury, week 1, Rodgers goes down and you couldn't beat them. And the Jets ended up getting a victory. And it was all panic. It was all, oh, the sky is falling. The Buffalo Bills are doomed. They missed their window to go get their first ever Super Bowl. And since then, they had 3 blowout victories against the Raiders, the Commanders. All right, Raiders stink. Commanders a solid opponent. But then they did go up against the Miami Dolphins. And headed into last week, Miami was considered the best team in the AFC and a top 3 team in the NFL. And Buffalo showed you, Miami, you're just not ready yet. And not only that, the Buffalo Bills are doing this without their best defensive player, and outside of Josh Allen, their most valuable player in Von Miller. Because Von Miller was brought in to win a Super Bowl like he did in Denver, where he won a Super Bowl MVP, and also in LA. The Bills sent a huge statement that week 1 wasn't real. Last year wasn't real. And the Bills are now back to being a threat inside the AFC and in the National Football League. All righty. Number 2, it's the San Francisco 49ers. Christian McCaffrey could be the MVP of the NFL this year. He will easily, as long as he stays healthy, be the offensive player of the year. And Brock Purdy is looking pretty awesome, and he's been absolutely ridiculous this year for the San Francisco 49ers. They are a loaded football team. I can't wait for this heavyweight matchup coming up on Sunday Night Football on NBC, between the 49ers and the Dallas Cowboys. But San Francisco, they are just a force and a force to be reckoned with. And it's kind of incredible that through all the moves that they've done the last few years, Jimmy Garoppolo's our guy. Okay, then we're going to flirt with Kirk Cousins. We don't bring him in. Then we're going to trade up and draft Trey Lance. And then, oh, yeah, by the way, we're going back to Jimmy G. All right, Trey Lance will give you the opportunity to start. Oh, Mr. Irrelevant? Oh, yeah, now you're the guy? And think about how quickly 49ers fans have made Brock Purdy to be the guy. Bill Romanowski, after like 3 starts, joined me on CBS Sports Radio, and he said, he reminds me a little bit of like Joe Montana. Steve Young in the offseason said, Brock Purdy has the force. And the 49ers, somehow, some way, against all odds, got it right. And no one's talking about this leading into the matchup. 49ers Cowboys, who's on the Cowboys right now? Trey Lance. I haven't heard Trey Lance's name mentioned one time this week because Dak has done a good job with Dallas and Brock has done a good job with the 49ers. And then finally, it's the Philadelphia Eagles. I think the Eagles get the tiebreaker here because they beat the 49ers in the playoffs last year. I do believe the Eagles slightly are the most complete team in the NFL compared to the 49ers. And here's the scary part with Philadelphia. They could get better. They haven't even played their best brand of football yet. So I look at the Philadelphia Eagles as the best team in the NFL right now. And I just trust Jalen Hurts more than I do Brock Purdy. So Cowboys in at 5, Chiefs at 4, Bills at 3, 49ers 2, Eagles 1. And now we ask Stuart Kovacs to speak now, forever hold your peace. Who are some teams that you're wondering why they are not in my top 5?
What about the Miami Dolphins?
Blown out by the Bills. They've been in my top 5 for every week but week 1, I believe. And I think the Miami Dolphins are a team that still could win the AFC East. Maybe they will learn from being blown out by the Buffalo Bills and it will humble them. But when you just get dismantled like that by the Buffalo Bills, I have to take you out of the top 5.
Another strong AFC team, the Baltimore Ravens.
I'm starting to really open up and warm up to the Baltimore Ravens. But the one concern why I can't go all in, it's the injuries. They've been a problem the last 2 years, and they've already decimated that team. But Lamar Jackson is making a case, maybe for another MVP.
And finally, a team that looked good on Monday night, the Seattle Seahawks.
I want to buy in on the Seattle Seahawks. I don't think they're the third best team in the NFC. Like I said before the start of the season, Dallas has shown that. But they have all the pieces. Geno's been a good quarterback. He actually got worried when he got hurt the other night. You have Tyler Lockett. You got DK Metcalf. Eventually, Jackson Smith and Jigba will get going. You got the 2 running backs and Walker and Charbonnet. I like what I saw from their defense. And that was the biggest question mark heading into this season. I just need to see their defense be more consistent for me to buy in. All righty, let's go to college here. I made a quick change here at the last second. And it's really nothing that they could do. But it's just because the wins that we thought were really good wins haven't aged well. Florida State is still in the top 5. They beat LSU. LSU now has 2 losses. They beat Clemson. Clemson is not a dominant Clemson team, and really, Dabo Swinney blew that game. But I love the Florida State quarterback. Jared Verse is also a phenomenal defensive player, and I'm a big fan of Mike Norvell. That's a team that they should win the ACC. They should be in the college football playoff, but their wins aren't as great as they were when they did happen, so I put Florida State in at 5. 4 is Oregon. Oregon this year, through just judging what we've seen and not looking at previous years, maybe the most dominant team in the country. Portland State 81-7. They beat Texas Tech 38-30. Hawaii 55-10. Colorado 42-6. Stanford 42-6. And now they go into a bye week and they have the biggest fight maybe of the college football season yet, going up against Washington at Washington, coming out of the bye on October 14th. But Bo Nix is putting up a Heisman campaign, and Oregon, like really outside of Texas Tech, and you could argue if they even had to sweat, haven't really had to sweat a whole lot this year, and the schedule will get tougher in this gauntlet of the Pac-12. In at number 3, it's Texas. Texas has the best win of the season. And I know Alabama's not viewed as the Alabama of years past, but they did go into Tuscaloosa and get the victory. Now they have a big matchup, Red River, great showdown going up against Oklahoma. But I put Texas in at 3. Number 2, I know they really haven't played anybody, but Nebraska does have a good run defense, and Michigan ran right through them. So Michigan's in at 2. McCarthy's looking really good, and Roman Wilson could be the most underrated player so far in college football. And then at number 1, you get the benefit of the doubt, even though you've had some close games this year, but you are back-to-back champions. You have Brock Bowers. Carson Beck has done well in the clutch moments, even though you had to sweat against Auburn and also against South Carolina. Now a good test with Kentucky coming into Athens this weekend. So my top 5 in college football: Florida State 5, Oregon 4, Texas 3, Michigan 2, and Georgia 1. Stuart Kovacs, speak now, forever hold your peace.
Undefeated team in the Pac-12, the Washington Huskies.
And could be my favorite team in college football this year. I've had them in the top 5 each and every week. I picked them to win the Pac-12 before the start of the season. It's just the competition that they've had to go up against has not been great this year, and that's going to change after their bye week and they go up against Washington. I think Michael Penix is the real deal. I love Kalen DeBoer, but I was only going to put one Pac-12 team in, and it just came down to I think Oregon has gone up against better competition in Texas Tech and Colorado.
A team that had a big win a couple weeks ago, the Ohio State Buckeyes.
So, yes, it was a big win, but my reaction from that game was I was more disappointed in Notre Dame with only 10 men on the field on the final play, dropping the interception, than it was me praising Ohio State. Ohio State season's coming down to Penn State and Michigan, so I'm not ready to put them in the top 5 just yet.
And you just mentioned them, the Penn State Nittany Lions.
Very similar to what I just said about Ohio State. I think Penn State has a good defense. We'll see if their offense is going to get more explosive. They have the talent there. Now they got to take off. But we all know James Franklin has been abysmal. I think he's like 3-15 or 3-16 in his career at State College against top 10, top 15 teams. And you look at Penn State, they haven't really been challenged yet. Let's see if they can get the job done at Ohio State this year. And then they also do play Michigan in Happy Valley. So those 2 games are going to be their season. They have to this year split one, or else this is a failure of a season for Penn State. All righty, top 5 once again. Florida State, Oregon, Texas, Michigan, and Georgia 5-1. And then in the NFL, Dallas 5, Kansas City 4, the Bills 3, the 49ers 2, and the Eagles in at the 1 spot.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
All righty, away we go. It is hour number 2 of our radio program. That's right. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. I saw yesterday that there was a report that Michigan State is interested in Urban Meyer, and my antenna went up right away, and I'm like, I don't know how much I'm buying it. We know that Urban Meyer has always been marred with controversy, and you look at Mel Tucker, and we saw the things that were allegedly going on with Mel Tucker at Michigan State. We all know that Urban Meyer can win football games. Everywhere he's gone outside of the NFL, he's won football games, and there's a difference in winning in college and winning in the NFL. And you saw him win at Utah. You saw him win at Florida, right, in the swamp. And then we saw what he was able to do in Ohio State. I'm not saying that you can't hire Urban Meyer, and I'm sure Urban Meyer could still win a ton of games in the year of 2023. But with that being said, I do wonder how much of a long-term fit Urban Meyer is now in college football. And if I'm Urban Meyer, I would learn from what happened with the NFL, and I wonder if he could check his ego at the door, which he probably can't. But if I'm him, I would stay at the comfy, really enjoyable college job that you have now, which is breaking down games on Big Noon Kickoff each and every Saturday, compared to the stressful demands that coaching does require. And whenever there is a situation that starts to go awry with Urban Meyer, there ends up being a health issue with Coach Meyer. So if I'm him, I'm not running to the NFL. I mean, I'm not running to college again just because of what happened in the NFL. I'm saying I'm now up there in age. I have solidified myself as one of the greatest college coaches of all time. I won 2 national championships at Florida. I won a national championship at Ohio State. Sure, people are going to look at Urban Meyer a little bit differently because of the horrible job that he did in handling the Zach Smith situation and all the controversies that did follow him at Florida. But if I'm him, I'm good with what I did on the football field, and I would not jump into another college coaching job. Now, I don't know if he has that in him. You know, schools will always come calling because we kind of do this in sports and we kind of do this in all jobs. We see what worked in the past. And even if it may not adapt to the times now of 2023, if you have a great resume, if you've been able to dominate at an elite level, even if you don't think you should hire that person, usually someone will come calling because people get comfortable with things that worked in the past instead of trying to be innovative, instead of trying to be new, instead of trying to be young as well. So there will be schools that will come calling for Urban Meyer. I don't know how publicly that is going to play out, but what I will say is I didn't buy this Michigan State report yesterday that he was like in East Lansing and he's going to be interviewing for the job. And I checked in with a friend of mine who's done radio for a long time in Detroit in Stoney, and he was like kind of not Michael Stone. He wasn't buying the report as well. And then today, Bruce Feldman comes out, and Bruce Feldman, I believe, still works for Fox, or did work for Fox. Does he still work for Fox now, Stu? I think he does. I know he also works for The Athletic. And Bruce Feldman, who's a longtime college football insider, he says about the reports linking Urban Meyer to Michigan State, I just checked with him. There is zero truth to it with him being a candidate for it. He has no interest in that and is happy with what he's doing now at Fox Sports. So here's how I'll interpret that statement and that report by Bruce Feldman. Michigan State hasn't called him yet because it's easy for Urban Meyer to say, oh, I'm not interested in that job. I'm happy with what I'm doing right now at Fox Sports. Because if you say I'm interested in the job and maybe Michigan State, for various reasons, aren't interested in Urban Meyer, it is a little bit humiliating, and it looks like Urban Meyer is begging for a job. And I think that perception does matter. So I just don't believe that Michigan State has kicked the tires yet on Urban Meyer. I don't know if they're ever going to kick the tires on Urban Meyer. But just because Bruce Feldman talks to Urban Meyer today, and Urban Meyer says, yeah, I have no interest, and I'm happy with what I'm doing now with Fox Sports. If, let's just say in 3 weeks, Michigan State calls him and says, hey, Urban, we want to bring you in here. We want you to be the next head football coach of our team at Michigan State. I have a tough time believing that Urban Meyer won't at least take the phone call, won't at least fly to East Lansing, and at least partake in the interview. Because even though Urban should be done with coaching, when people ask me the question, do you think we'll ever see Urban Meyer coach again? There's still a part of me that's screaming on the inside that goes, Zach, don't say he's done coaching. Zach, don't say that this is over, because we know how college coaches are. We know how coaches are. And there's a lot of coaches that they retire or they get fired from someplace and they basically become zombies because they live, they eat, they sleep, and they breathe this crazy culture, and they get addicted to coaching sports because of the thrill that they get. And I have a tough time saying that Urban Meyer is definitely done, even though it takes two to tango, and you need a team that's going to be interested in him, and he's also going to be interested. But I don't think it's going to take much to convince Urban Meyer to coach again, because down deep, knowing how passionate Urban Meyer is and knowing how just a competitive freak Urban Meyer is, what made him so great, it has to eat at him. It has to drive him crazy, where it didn't work out in the NFL. And that's the last chapter of your illustrious coaching career, even though everyone should be good with it, right? You're Urban Meyer. We could separate college coaches from coaching the pros, right? No one looks at Nick Saban differently because it didn't work out for the 2 years that he was with the Miami Dolphins, because what he did before that at LSU and what he did in his best chapter after the Dolphins, being the head football coach of the Alabama Crimson Tide. But when we look at things and we break things down as a normal human being, as a talk show host, as a fan, the way that we view things and the way that we think of things logically, we can't relate, we can't compare to the guys that were in the heat of the battle, to the guys that were on the sidelines coaching. And we see a lot of times coaches come back when you go, yeah, you probably shouldn't have done that. And for Urban Meyer, he shouldn't have ever gone to the NFL. But he got that itch. Shad Khan offered him a very nice contract, and you knew right away that it wasn't going to work, whether it was the strength and conditioning coach that he hired and all the controversies that followed him, the way that he treated people. And this is why, a big reason why a lot of college coaches don't translate into the pros, is because it's my way or the highway. When you're a college coach, you are the king. You are the CEO. You run the university. You are the rah-rah guy. Whatever I say, that message is gospel, and everyone either has to listen or you'll get booted out of the university. When you go to the NFL, we're talking about grown men, that a lot of these grown men make more money than you, and they have families too. And that college style rarely translates into the NFL. And I also do wonder, like we all know Urban Meyer could go anywhere in college and win games, but will it result into the level of him being an elite coach again because of the way that the sport has transformed, right? Players are now making money legally, and I have no problem with that. I always say college football, right? Everyone used to get a piece of the pie legally besides the actual athletes that we all watch. But now with the transfer portal, if you have one of those drill sergeant coaches where if you watch the Swamp King documentary and they're practicing in the middle of night, and if you're a great player, you're getting steak, and if you're not a good player, you're basically sitting at like the kids' table and hoping that they actually serve you a decent meal. If a college player walks in there now, he could get up and get on out very quickly and go somewhere and transfer free of charge because you get one free transfer. And I do wonder, where Urban Meyer go anywhere and go win 6-7 games. But Urban Meyer doesn't coach to just win 6-7 games. If you're talking about 9, 10, 11 and competing for national championships, I do wonder if Urban Meyer's style does now translate to the year of 2023 in college football. So Bruce Feldman denies this. Urban Meyer denies it about the interest for now of Michigan State and Urban Meyer. And Urban Meyer says he's not interested and he's happy at Fox. So with that being said, in the aftermath here of the Mel Tucker firing, who else could be some legit candidates in East Lansing? And I would call a guy that just joined us in the last hour, Mark Stoops. I don't think Mark Stoops is leaving Kentucky. I don't think he's leaving Kentucky for Michigan State because Kentucky has gone out of their way to assure Mark Stoops that what he's doing right now at Kentucky is important. And Mark Stoops last year felt comfortable enough where he could challenge John Calipari when John Calipari, who we all know Kentucky's a basketball school, just said that. And it caused this great overreaction. And Mark Stoops was annoyed to a point where Calipari had to publicly apologize. I don't think that was Calipari wanting to publicly apologize. I think he was forced by the school to publicly apologize. So I would try to go make a phone call to Mark Stoops. If you are Michigan State, I don't think Deion Sanders is leaving for Michigan State, but you got to call Coach Prime with the excitement that he brought to that program to try to get a seat at the table with Ohio State, with Michigan, and with Penn State in the Big Ten. That's also adding a plethora of schools from the West Coast as well. If you can't get Stoops, if you can't get Coach Prime, which I don't think either are going to Michigan State, Lance Leipold is someone that has to get a phone call. Lance Leipold, and Kansas has been a dumpster fire. He did a nice job with them last year, and he's doing a fine job, even though they did not show up in that second half against Texas. Lance Leipold is someone that is primed to get a bigger opportunity. I know Chris Kleiman at Kansas State has said that he's not leaving Kansas State for Michigan State, but you got to place a phone call to him. You also got to place a phone call to the Washington coach in Kalen DeBoer. Now, if you can't get those big names, let's go through maybe a few names of guys that are either at smaller schools or are assistants. And when you look at the assistant route, even though I just said that Ohio State wasn't a top 5 team, we know Ohio State has turned into wide receiver U. And Brian Hartline is young. He played in college. He played in the NFL. And he has just pumped out wide receiver after wide receiver at The Ohio State. It feels like it's inevitable that he is going to get a head coaching job. And we've seen a lot of younger coaches now hired in college football because they get NIL. They get the transfer portal, and they could easily relate to the players. Brian Hartline, Stu, let me just ask you this, because I was amazed when I heard the answer. How old do you think Brian Hartline is?
Ooh, wow.
Just take a guess.
I would say 30, 33.
Wow, okay. I thought you would guess a little bit. He's only 36 years old. Like,
Wow.
we've talked about Brian Hartline for so many years here. Oh, he's going to get a job. He's going to get a job. He's going to get a job. If Brian Hartline gets a head coaching job, it's going to feel similarly to like when Marcus Freeman was hired. It's like a younger coach. I think Freeman's like 38, 39, something like that. But a guy that has been an assistant for a while, and you know he's ready for that opportunity. And, yeah, Coach Freeman's got to make sure that you get 11 players on the field up against Ohio State. You had a crazy cathartic victory up against Duke last week. But you got to find a way to get the job done when you get the opportunity. And sometimes, like, you just hear someone's name so many years, and you forget just how young they are. But Brian Hartline is someone that I think could be a really good coach and would be a good hire for Michigan State. I'll give you another one. This is another guy that we've heard his name thrown in for jobs for years. We thought he was going to get the Wisconsin job. Now he's on Brett Bielema's staff at Illinois, Jim Leonhard. Like, Jim Leonhard got his heart broken when Luke Fickell left Cincinnati to take the Wisconsin job. I think Jim Leonhard would be a good hire for Michigan State. And then I'll give you three more, and we'll wrap up this conversation. Remember Charles Huff last year at Marshall and what he was able to do? Beat Notre Dame. That's a good, young, up-and-coming coach. Jonathan Smith, maybe he gets a little bit tired, and he goes, I have a really good football team. I have a really good situation at Oregon State. That's his school too, but they don't have a home for the foreseeable future when you look at the moving landscape of college football with all the teams leaving the Pac-12. And then the final one, who I think his name will be hot, and it wouldn't surprise me if he winds back up at A&M, even though A&M may try to go for a bigger name if they get rid of Jimbo Fisher, but he was at A&M before taking the Duke job. That's Mike Elko. Mike Elko this year, and even going back to last year, we've seen him early on in his coaching career get noticed by a lot of people in his first head coaching job around the sport of college football. So I know I threw about like 7 or 8 names at you, but those are some names, and I don't think it's going to be Urban Meyer. I don't think Michigan State's going to call. I do believe that they call, Urban Meyer would listen, because it would not surprise me if he coaches again. But if it's not Urban Meyer, those are some names that I like for the Michigan State job. And if I was running the search, those are some names that I would target. All righty. Very busy hour number 2 of the program right here on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Omar Vizquel will join us to talk a little postseason baseball in about 20, 25 minutes from now. When we come on back, we'll update you on some of the biggest stories in the world of sports with some audio. We call that segment The News Brief.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
Alrighty, let's start off with the New Heights podcast. That's the podcast with Travis and Jason Kelsey, and they discuss the NFL's coverage of Taylor Swift at games.
I think it's fun when they show who all is at the game, but at the same time, I think
they're overdoing it.
They're overdoing it a little bit. For sure, especially my situation.
I just think the NFL is not used to celebrities coming to the games. Like basketball has it figured out. They show them once or twice, and then they get back to the game. NFL is like, oh, look at all these A-list celebrities in the game. Keep showing them, show them. Dude, listen, you show them once, let them know that they're there. Maybe after a touchdown, you get a little clip, but you can't be overboard with it.
Yeah.
People are there to watch the game, right?
Yeah, they're not there to get thrown on TV.
Here's the issue the NFL has. I don't even want to say it's an issue, but they don't know how to handle not being the star. Like, the NFL is always king. No one ever finds a way to usurp the NFL. But when Taylor Swift now goes to an NFL game, it almost usurps the NFL because Taylor Swift, and I can't believe I'm saying this as, like, the biggest NFL fan, Taylor Swift usurps the NFL. Just look at the social media followings and look at all this craziness. And I know everyone's talking about all the other celebrities that she's with. No one cares if they're shown on camera. Everyone wants to see Taylor Swift right now. But it does become too much. And I really do believe that the NFL and these TV companies, too, that have all this money that they pay to get the NFL deals, they know that the NFL is always going to be this high, like the highest rated program that they have on their air throughout the years. Like, what is it? Every year comes out like 40 of the top 50 programs of the year, or the highest rated programs of the year, NFL programs. But now you're getting new audience members because there are Swifties like Stuart Kovacs, who would watch the games anyway, but let's just say Stu's girlfriend, who may or may not be a big NFL fan. Like, Stu, is your girlfriend a big NFL fan, or she just watches games because you like it?
She's gotten more into it, but it's still probably more watching because I'm watching. If I wasn't there, she wouldn't be watching, most likely.
But she is a Swiftie, correct?
Yes.
And she probably had interest in watching the game on Sunday night because she knew Taylor Swift was going to be at MetLife Stadium.
She was locked in pregame, during the game, all of it.
So there's so many more eyeballs to the set, and when you bring more eyeballs to the set, you got to kind of play the hits and cater to the audience. By the way, you want to know who's becoming insufferable? And it's a shame, too, because he's one of the greatest basketball players of all time. But LeBron James tries to be best friends with everybody, and it drives me crazy. I've never heard like LeBron James say something critical about everybody, about anybody. And there's no way that you could live life that way. You know, you could say you like someone and you like everyone, but we know that's not the truth. Did you see, I can't find the tweet right now because he tweets so much, but did you see LeBron James on Twitter practically begging to get on this New Heights podcast? Like, LeBron, I know that you like the show with Travis and Jason Kelce, but you don't need to be on every platform, and you could let those guys get some of the spotlight, and you don't need to jump on New Heights. I found the tweet, by the way. It's because he didn't put a dot in front of the @ mention, so it goes right into his replies. Crazy New Heights he tags. Crazy I can't get an invite to join y'all. Fantastic show. Is it because you guys are truly the kings of Northeast Ohio and I claim to be? Be honest. Seriously, you guys are awesome. And he does awesome in all capital letters and a bunch of exclamation points. Now, Stu, I know that you are a big fan of the king in LeBron James, but you have to be like, all right, LeBron, settle down. You don't need to go on Travis and Jason Kelce's podcast to try to throw yourself into this story.
Yeah, it's become insufferable at this point. I just kind of wanted to see him play basketball. Hopefully 82 games or somewhere around there. Probably not 82, but, you know, as many games as he could play, and that's enough.
And the other bull crap is the other day. Oh, yeah, Anthony Davis is now the face of the Lakers. Come on, LeBron.
No shot.
We all know that you're the face of the Lakers. AD may be the most valuable player because you need him healthy to go win a championship, but he's not the face of the Lakers. Here is Von Miller on if he could play this weekend in London, as you do have the Buffalo Bills going across the pond. This is via the Voncast.
If I was a betting man, I would say, yeah, you can expect to see Von Miller in London. This is my first time playing in London, and, you know, who knows how many chances I get to play in London. So I want this to happen. I'm pushing for it to happen.
So Bills and Jaguars this weekend in London. I'm kind of surprised with how long Von Miller has been in the league that he hasn't played in London yet. But if he's saying that he's ready to go and he expects to play, sometimes organizations jump in and they go, all right, let's wait a week. Let's be careful here because of how important Von Miller is to that football team and he's brought in to win a championship. But it seems like you're getting the green light so far if Von Miller's that confident sharing it on the podcast, or at least trying to put the pressure on the organization to allow him to play. Here is Aaron Rodgers on the always entertaining Pat McAfee show discussing his rehab for this Achilles injury he suffered.
You know, it's pretty obvious I'm well ahead of the normal protocols when it comes to rehab for this kind of thing. But that was always what my mindset was, and you know, the type of surgery that he'd been doing now for a little bit, and then you know, whatever protocols were out there, just not adhering to those, being as smart as possible, not trying to stretch the Achilles, but stretching the Achilles in a way that allows me to start doing movement quicker and to speed up whatever timeline kind of has been the standard for this type of injury.
Do we have to really complicate this? Do you always have to be just conceited if you're Aaron Rodgers? And as if you're the greatest thing, and if you think really hard, and if you try to defy all the odds, you'll find a way to get back onto the field as quick as possible. Aaron Rodgers isn't playing football this year for two reasons. Even if he's cleared, the Jets aren't going to be in the playoffs. He won't be able to be cleared at earliest until January. So stop with this nonsense. Yes, it's crazy how quickly he's walking around on the sidelines and all that stuff. But Aaron Rodgers using this like greater power of his intellectual thoughts that's going to quickly heal him, and he's not going to listen and fall in line with a normal timeline. Like, give me a break. We're not going to see him back on the football field this year. Here is Dan Campbell on 97.1 The Ticket in Detroit on if they will play Jamison Williams this week.
Now it's just building trust, building a rapport with golf, and get him some things that we feel like he can really sink his teeth into. We cannot overload him. Yes, we'd love to get him up this week, but we don't want to overload him either. That wouldn't be fair to him. And then let's just go.
Did he call his quarterback golf there? Did we have that, Stu, one more time? Let's see if we could get that real quickly isolated.
Rapport with golf.
Is that just because he's on a conference call and he's on? I've been on those chats before. The coach is always on a speakerphone. Or did you hear golf there?
I kind of heard golf, like the sport golf.
Rapport with golf.
That's a misspeak there.
It's close.
Yeah, I'm not going to crush him for it. So we'll see what happens with Jamison Williams. Andrew Berry of the Cleveland Browns, the general manager, on Deshaun Watson's shoulder. Remember, no Deshaun Watson last week, and you saw Dorian Thompson-Robinson.
Is there any concern that the shoulder injury will affect Deshaun's ability to pass going forward?
We don't view it as a long-term injury, or I think Kevin mentioned earlier in the week. There's nothing structural. We are optimistic that it'll heal in the short term and he'll be ready to go.
Here's the good news for the Browns. They're on a bye week this week, and then they come out of that bye going up against the San Francisco 49ers. So that's not a good landing spot for Deshaun Watson to come back because of how great the defense is for the San Francisco 49ers. But when you're getting paid all that money, and when they traded up all those picks to get you, I don't want to hear any excuses if you're going to be on the field. But I do believe that a lot of people were surprised, and I think even some of his teammates were surprised that Deshaun Watson ended up missing that game against the Baltimore Ravens. So maybe this injury is worse than what we were led on to believe. Let's go to Derrick Rose, now with the Memphis Grizzlies, on his role with Ja Morant and trying to move his career back in the right direction.
I just told them I'm not here to babysit you. I'm not here to follow you around. I'm not here to cheerlead. I'm here to push you and let him know when in times like whenever he's being reckless to calm down.
So Ja Morant has been his own worst enemy. And bringing back in Derrick Rose makes sense because Derrick Rose has been around the league for a long time and has seen a lot of stuff. And he's now towards, the last two holes, potentially, of his career, if you wanted to use a golf analogy. And I'm not talking about the quarterback of the Detroit Lions like Dan Campbell was. But you look at Derrick Rose, if I was Ja Morant and I'm suspended for 25 games, I don't know how much accountability Ja Morant takes, and I don't know if he understands how stupid his actions were and how it could have been a whole lot worse for Ja Morant. And now you bring in someone like Derrick Rose, and even though you may have looked up to Derrick Rose, and I don't know what the relationship is, but you're cognizant of the type of player Derrick Rose was, a former MVP of this league, it's like, oh, here comes this guy in, and he's going to tell me how to do everything the right way. And even though that advice may be needed and important, there may be some resistance by Ja Morant. So I think this approach that Derrick Rose just took, where he's like, I'm not here to babysit you, I'm not here to show you everything is the right thing, because it kind of lets that wall down a little bit, and it may be easier for Derrick Rose to connect with Ja Morant. And finally, Phillies last year were 6-2 in the playoffs at Citizens Bank Ballpark. They are now 1-0 after taking care of the Marlins last night. We'll see if they can complete the wild card sweep tonight. But there was some interesting celebrations going on all throughout the game by the Fightins. And you saw Nick Castellanos, who's having a big redemption season in Philadelphia, flip off his own dugout. He explained why, NBC Sports Philadelphia.
You were on second base tonight. A lot of people around America thought you flipped the bird. But was it the ring finger?
Of course it was the ring finger, man. Why would I give the middle finger to my teammates? I love them.
I know. Well, I just want to clear it up for the internet. And the ring finger, you're looking for that ring?
That's why we're here, man. But October.
I don't know. I watched that video. Didn't you see the middle finger there still?
I did. That's what I thought, at least.
So is that like TV chatter? I know John Clark from Philadelphia. Is that like cheesy TV where it's like, oh, let's get a ring finger quote in there? Maybe we just saw it late and it was going from the ring finger then to the middle finger? Is that what it was?
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think he flipped off his dugout. And you know the Phillies started to remind me of? Remember how the 2004 Red Sox called themselves like the idiots and they embraced that? You have a lot of like fun, wacky personalities on this Phillies team. And I say this as a Met fan. Like, this Phillies team is actually likable. When you look at guys like Nick Castellanos, Trey Turner, Bryce Harper, the fact that he's even playing this year off the Tommy John and missed like no time pretty much. This is a likable team. And it drives me bonkers because all these teams that win World Series in the NL East, like when the Nationals won, they were a likable team. When the Braves won a few years ago, they were a likable team. And now this Phillies team is a likable team where they play in Philadelphia. The fans are crazy. We all know that they're great, passionate fans, and there's not a lot of great home field advantages anymore in sports, but home field advantage in Philadelphia really does reign supreme, and we're seeing it with the Phillies off to this 1-0 start, and they were 6-2 last year in the postseason. So I don't get, maybe it was the ring finger, like, oh, we're going for that ring. A little bit earlier to do that if you ask me. But in the video that I saw, I'll take another look at it during the break, I thought I saw the middle finger. And I was like kind of loving that, saying, oh, 2004 Red Sox embracing the idiot's mantra. All righty, Zach Gelb, show CBS Sports Radio. We'll talk to a great baseball player, man, that should be in the Hall of Fame, but is not. We'll talk with that and also the MLB postseason with Omar Vizquel next. But first up, standing by with the latest CBS Sports Radio update, here is a man. Some people are saying this in the YouTube chat, by the way. They think Ack and I are wearing the same shirt because we're both wearing polos. They're totally two different kind of collared shirts today, but both somewhat blue.
Somewhat blue, but yours, they don't see the...
Oh, they don't see the fade?
Yes, they don't see the fade, but we're not even close in colors of blue.
Not to be like Tara Banks on America's Next Top Model, because I'm the farthest thing from that, but I have like a fading blue.
But I like that people are taking note of what we're wearing.
Yeah, well, because when you were earlier trying to change the TV channel, they just saw the blue shirt walk right behind me, and they're like, who's that blue shirt? Why are we seeing two Gelbs in there? Because they thought it was like the same shirt as I. But
two Gelbs, they're giving me some size.
Yeah, right? We could form a basketball team. We just got to get two more players, then we'll have a good starting five or something like that.
Or I could stand on your shoulders. And
Yeah, that's true. I do have, back from my fraternity days, I saw some photos that reemerged today where I was like picked up and they had like 7 people were holding me doing a keg stand, and then one of my friends was on my shoulders too. So we could try that with Yak during the break. You want to do a keg stand?
Not really.
Oh, okay.
After neck surgery, no.
Oh, yeah, that's true. We want to make sure that the neck is okay.
Otherwise, if I was younger, yeah, why not? Sure.
We don't want you looking like Christopher Moltisanti with the neck brace.
Exactly.
Or Mike the Situation if we want a newer reference. Anyway, we'll get to Omar Vizquel next. Update time first. Here's the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
Looks like it's going to be a very short stay for the Rays in the postseason. Another sparse crowd today in Tampa Bay, and they now trail the Rangers by a score of 6-0 in the top of the 6th. How about the start to the postseason for Evan Carter, the Rangers' top prospect? Homered today in the 4-run fourth, and he has now been on base in each of his first 6 plate appearances in the postseason. Also today, Adolis Garcia with a home run for Texas as well. Getting underway in Minnesota are the Twins and Blue Jays. Minnesota took the opener on its home field to snap an 18-game postseason skid dating back to 2004. It'll be Sonny Gray against Jose Barrios. The 2 National League games today feature the Diamondbacks taking Game 1 on the road in Milwaukee, and they look to close out that series today. And the Phillies host the Marlins after winning the series opener. James Harden reportedly practiced with the Sixers today after skipping media day. Kenny Pickett said he'll be good to go on Sunday despite a bone bruise in his knee. And the Broncos releasing veteran pass rusher Randy Gregory. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Looking for CBS Sports Radio online? Your favorite hosts and the best sports content and entertainment are available 24/7 on social media and YouTube, and in the palm of your hand with the free Odyssey app.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
You're listening to the Zach Gelb Show.
All righty, we'll talk a little postseason baseball right now with Omar Vizquel, who's kind enough to join us right now on the Zach Gelb Show, but where else? CBS Sports Radio. Omar, appreciate the time. Thanks for it. How are you?
Hi, Zach. How are you? How you doing? Yeah, we are coming into this celebration of baseball right now. This week has been a little drama for a lot of teams, and very exciting to be watching the games now on TV.
When you watch baseball now in 2023, I know it's a lot different. It feels like it's home run or strikeout. I know that they've tried to change the game with the pitch clock this year and also with bullpen limits and things like that. How do you kind of process baseball now in the year of 2023?
Well, it's a little different to what the baseball we used to see, you know, with the bunt and the steals and everything that went on the old school baseball, should I call it. But it's very exciting. You know, you still see a lot of stars racing in the game. Not everybody can hit home runs. Not every team can survive hitting home runs. So obviously there has been adjusting their team to make runs, to manufacture runs, and everybody can do it in different ways. But there is no doubt that you cannot have a baseball team built in just home runs. You also need those guys that get on base. You need the steal. You need the fast guys. You need guys that know about the strike zone. And obviously that make a huge difference when you get to the playoff.
I know you coached a little bit, but I'm surprised that you never became a manager. Is that something that you're still interested in, getting back into the coaching game?
Yeah, no doubt. I did manage in Little League. After my coaching career with the Detroit Tigers for 4 years, I went to manage on the Chicago White Sox organization. I managed there for 2 years, single A and double A. And they were asking a lot of different things for us to do according to the cybermetrics and all that stuff that's going on right now. And we saw a little change in the game going back to those to the years that we played. But, you have to evolve. I think every front office try different things to improve their baseball games, their players and everything. And, we just have to go along with whatever is being teaching these days.
Yeah, and I feel like as Omar Vizquel is here with us, especially with the passion that you played with and the knowledge that you played with, it's now as if you were to become a big league manager, right? The front office executive walks up to you and go, here's the lineup for the day. This is what the computer basically told us. I'm not against analytics, but I don't think we should live and die with them, Omar.
Yeah, I mean, you have to learn how to get a balance from both sides. It's hard to get a lineup every day and change guys around the lineup when you know that you have guys in the top of the lineup that are going to do the job, guys that are hot, that are swinging the bat hot in that moment. And then all of a sudden, you're going to tell him, hey, you're hitting 6 today because the numbers show that you cannot hit this guy. So, there are different things that rub the different way with the players. That's why you have to be in constant communication with them, letting them know what is the situation, what are you doing, the things that you're doing, so they don't get down on themselves and lose their focus.
I know you're probably tired of answering this question, but when it comes to the Hall of Fame, how have you kind of processed it the last few years? As I'm sure you're still hopeful to one day get in, but so far you haven't got that call yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun to be in the process. This is my 6th year now, and I'm glad that people still compare my numbers to Luis Aparicio, who is the only Venezuelan that is in the Hall of Fame, and then maybe Ozzie Smith, who is the shortstop that everybody follow, when we were growing up. I like the interaction of different reporters talking about why does he belong or why he doesn't belong, and the comparisons that they come out. I'm still learning things nowadays that things that I did on the field, things that have to do with the evaluation and how they actually evaluate a player. So it's kind of interesting to see all those numbers throwing back at you, and it's kind of fun. But yeah, I'm still on the ballot, and I'm glad that I still have the opportunity to be there someday.
When you hear that you have 11 gold gloves, that would suggest that you were a great elite player and that you should be in the Hall of Fame. Do you feel as if the voters just don't prioritize and care for a great defense?
Well, it's hard to say because, the Gold Glove is a very proud thing for any infielder. You talk to any infielder, they would like to get a Gold Glove in their cabinets or in their house. The fact that I have 11 is amazing because the coaches and managers vote for Gold Glove, and they obviously recognize who are the guys that are the best on the field. And, I felt pretty proud for that. I took proud on getting Gold Glove every year. And, you play with guys against Jeters and Alex Rodriguez and Tejada and Garcia Parra and all these power hitters. And then, on the fielding side, they recognize me as one of the best. So, I felt pretty proud about those awards.
Do you ever sit back and go, man, if I just had 123 more hits, I'd be at 3,000. And then, every writer with all these wacky standards would be like, Omar Vizquel, he would definitely be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I mean, when you look back and, I took advantage of every opportunity they give me. Don't get me wrong. I play, for 24 seasons. I was able to jump from one position to another at the end of my career. And, I was a team player. I took pride of what I did on the field, keeping my body in shape, because it's not easy to just play that many years and be bouncing around, be like another coach for the younger generation of guys. And I think that's why you get that opportunity to play in different teams.
Omar Vizquel here with us. When you look back at some of your postseason memories, I remember the hit to extend the series up against the Yankees. Just what comes back to mind?
Excitement. You have to give it all on the field. I know that in playoff and World Series, the numbers kind of get lost in there because people analyze one way or another what team is going to win. But it's just a matter of how strong you are mentally in those situations. I think the players that know how to handle the pressure and how to put away all the bad thoughts, negative thoughts, have an advantage. And, that's what I love to see so much playoff games, because it doesn't matter what the people is saying out there. You have a responsibility and you have a level of tough mind that you can just go through. So, the predictions are great, but I know there is a lot of things that get out of hands.
When you look at the AL and you talk about that experience and that mindset, I kind of feel, even though they're not the top seed, until someone takes out the Astros just with how much experience they have, I kind of just expect them to be back in the World Series this year. How about yourself in the AL?
Yeah, me too. I feel the same way. A team that experienced World Series already, they has been in that situation already. They have a little bit of edge and advantage over the other teams. They know how to handle things. And you can see how the last 3 games of the season, they needed to win in order for them to advance. And they did it. How they do it, I don't know. But that experience will take you there. And I really believe that this team is going to be pretty tough at the end. And, they're going to be hard to beat.
And in the NL, we know that it's World Series or bust for the Braves. The Braves have been the most dominant team in baseball. There's a lot of other good teams in the NL, like the Dodgers. We see the home field advantage that the Phillies have, what's going to go down between the Diamondbacks and the Brewers as well. But I wonder how the Braves respond to pressure. They got that World Series a few years ago, but now everyone's going after them, and it's going to be fascinating if they lose a game or two, how quickly they could bounce back.
Yeah, that's going to be the question for them. I think that they shouldn't lose any confidence at all, because they have, I think, the best team in baseball right now. They have it all. They have the pitching, they have the hitting, they have speed, they have just about everything. And just the fact that they have 2 MVP candidates that, if one go down, the other one can come and supply the power or whatever they do. I think it's going to be a very hard team to beat. So for me, the World Series should be the Astros and the Atlanta Braves.
I know towards the end of his career, you were teammates in San Francisco with Barry Bonds. We were talking about your Hall of Fame status. It's a lot more complicated with Bonds. Personally, I think he should be in the Hall. He's one of the greatest baseball players I've ever seen. I know that you have all the steroid stuff, and it's part of the conversation, but I don't ignore greatness. Where do you lie on Barry Bonds, or do you think he should get the call to Cooperstown one day?
Well, all these guys that has been involved with steroids, things, there has been great players. They obviously Roger Clemens and all the other people that are not in the Hall of Fame. It's very sad to see, because they represent baseball for a long time, and they make mistakes just like everybody else, and I think they realize it. But yeah, you see guys like Barry Bonds swinging the bat, and everything that followed Barry was greatness. How much he did for the game those days, and the home run chase and all that stuff. I actually had the pleasure to be with him for 4 years, and yeah, no doubt that he has been, I think, the best player overall in the history of the game. I didn't see all the other Roger Marys and all the other great ones, but I think taking a look at Barry Bonds playing every day, it gives you that feeling.
What are your thoughts when you see Ohtani play now? Because I've never, we hear about Babe Ruth obviously growing up, but I never saw him play. But to see what he's doing on the mound and also at the plate, I know he just had the injury, but it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, these type of players don't come out very often, once every 100 years. And we should be acknowledged a lot of things that these guys do, because not only he can throw the baseball and have some great numbers with the pitching, he can also go long ball. He can hits for average. He's a complete player in every aspect of the world. Great. So amazing to see a guy like this on the field.
Well, Omar, I got about 30 seconds here real quickly. I know you have a big passion for art now. Just tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I'm still hitting the art very hard. You know, I'm working on a baseball collection that is going to go up pretty soon, and trying to get the right people and the right places to go to. I'm thinking about Miami because of the Venezuelan people that follow the Miami Marlins, who congratulate them by the way, because being on the playoff is not easy, and they did it. And I think, just it's going to be a little different thing. We're going to have some fun with that. Like I said, it's going to be focusing on baseballs and glove and bats and stuff like that. So take a look at my website, take a look at the Instagram, because we're going to be posting a lot of things about this art show.
Well, we'll definitely do that. Omar Vizquel, good luck. Thanks so much. We appreciate the time.
Thank you so much, sir, for the opportunity.
You got
Bye-bye.
it. There he is, the great Omar Vizquel with us on CBS Sports Radio. Coming on back, talking a little Chicago Bears.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. 1 minute remaining. $45 seconds remaining. $30 seconds remaining. $15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Alrighty, this is Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio, hour number 3 of our radio program. You can listen to us across all the great local CBS Sports Radio affiliates, Sirius XM, channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and of course on our YouTube stream as well. You could also give us a follow at Zach Gelb on Twitter and Instagram. 855-212-4CBS, number to jump on in, 855-212-4227. I saw that Maggie and Perloff had the great Peter King on earlier this morning on many of these same local CBS Sports Radio affiliates. And Peter King was talking about if the Bears go down this weekend on Thursday Night Football up against the Washington Commanders, and if it looks ugly, this could actually be the end of the road for Matt Eberflus with the Chicago Bears, and they could move on to a new head football coach, which I do think that would be early. Let me be clear. I fully anticipate at the end of the season that the Bears are going to clean house. That means Matt Eberflus is going to get shown the door. You would think from a logical standpoint, if you're getting rid of the coach, you would also get rid of the general manager. I don't usually like when they fire the coach, they keep the GM, and then they have the GM find another coach, because then if the other coach doesn't work, then the GM goes, and then you keep the coach, and then you're bringing in a new GM that doesn't want the coach. So it's just an endless cycle of just stupid and just craziness and chaos. But it would fit kind of the way that the Bears operate that organization, in where they never get it right and they always get it wrong. But I would be really surprised. And I know this is coming from someone that said yesterday, Matt Eberflus is the number one coach, that his seat is the warmest, but I don't think he's going to get fired 5 games into the season. Now, it's one thing being incompetent. It's one thing being inept as a head football coach. And I never got what the appeal was to bring in Matt Eberflus. And just because Zach Gelb, the talk show host, doesn't like the hire of Matt Eberflus doesn't mean that the coach won't end up having success. Like, look at Nick Sirianni in Philadelphia. We all clowned Nick Sirianni when he was hired. We all clowned Doug Peterson when he was hired. Mike McDaniel when he was hired. We all clowned that hiring. Mike McDaniel has a really damn good football team. You look at Nick Sirianni. He was just in the Super Bowl. Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl. So just because you're not in love with the hire doesn't mean it can't be a hire. But I never saw the appeal. And it's not just bringing a defensive mind, but I never looked at Matt Eberflus and said, oh, that's a guy that I need to have as a head coach. And sometimes guys are just better as a defensive coordinator, and they don't end up being great head coaches. Like Steve Spagnuolo is a friend. I love Steve Spagnuolo. We get him on like once a year. I've seen Spags a bunch of times. Spags a wonderful dude. Steve Spagnuolo has been an all-time great defensive coordinator. Has won 2 Super Bowls in Kansas City and was the DC of the New York Giants when they defeated, at the time, the undefeated New England Patriots in that Super Bowl. Spags, though, with the Rams, was not a good head coach. And he hasn't got another opportunity to be a head coach since then. So sometimes you just got to know who you are. And the first chapter isn't always the best one as a head coach. And sometimes you get a second chapter and your career skyrockets. Like Pete Carroll was not a good head coach at first in the NFL. Look what he's now done in Seattle. Bill Belichick. I know he got to a playoff game and beat the Patriots with Parcells when he was the head coach of Cleveland, but that wasn't a successful tenure. And then he became one of the greatest coaches of all time with the second chapter with the New England Patriots. But I looked at Matt Eberflus, and I never saw someone that I thought you need to hire as a head coach. But it's one thing to lose, and then it's another thing for it to become a circus. And the Bears have become a circus where I never understood the ridiculous optimism that people had with the Bears before the season started. And it wasn't just the media, it wasn't just fans. Like Justin Fields said, he's going to become the first 4,000-yard passer in Bears history, and it was going to happen this season. So the organization is at fault as well. But the Bears made a big, sexy move where they went out and they got DJ Moore, and everyone's like, oh, wow, you got DJ Moore and you got Justin Fields. That means that this is going to be a team that takes off, because you saw Josh Allen's career take off when he got Stephon Diggs. You saw Jalen Hurts' career take off when he got A.J. Brown and he got Devontae Smith. You saw Tua Tagovailoa's career take off when he got Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. But the rest of those rosters are really damn good. The Bears don't have a good roster. And I said it this offseason. I was talking to my buddy David Hall, who works for Odyssey Station 670 The Score, legendary 670 Score in Chicago. And I said, everyone tells me that this Bears offensive line is going to be improved. Well, no crap. You would think the Bears offensive line is going to be improved. You can't get worse than where you were a year ago, but how much are they going to improve? And he said, Zach, it's a great question, because people say they're improved. It's not tough to improve from where you were a year ago. And you see the way that it played out last week. Even when they were having a good moment and Fields looked great, yeah, it's one isolated moment and they still lost the game. And you're going up against a Denver Broncos defense, which Sean Payton, we all praise him for being this great head coach. His defense, and I know he's an offensive-minded coach, but they're Swiss cheese. They are lost. And that was a defense, by the way. We're going into the year, if you asked about best secondaries in the NFL, the Denver Broncos were right up there. They had top 3, top 4, top 5 in terms of the way that we viewed that secondary heading into the season. And that defense, I don't even know if defensive coordinator is going to be there in a few weeks from now. And Rex Ryan, it doesn't help when he's on TV every day. And he wanted that job, and they went in a different direction. But you look at that Broncos team and that Broncos defense, it's like, am I really supposed to praise the Bears in a loss because they showed up offensively against that horrible defense? I can't do that. I can't walk away and say things are improving in Chicago. But even if you get rid of the coach, Matt Eberflus, what's going to change? Like, what is going to change in season? What's going to be different with the Chicago Bears? Because there's one thing to say, Matt Eberflus isn't the right coach. And I don't think he is the right coach. And there's another thing for this organization to take off after that. And this organization's not going to take off after that this season because they don't have the talent. Like, not everyone could be Steve Wilkes, who walked in, for the defensive coordinator and then becomes the interim head coach last year in a terrible division, has success with the Panthers. But the Panthers at least had some talent. The Bears don't have a lot of great talent. And you got to be realistic here in where they will eventually fire Eberflus, but I don't think it needs to be done in season. And Ryan Poles, he's going to lose his job at the end of the year as well. Because if you're the Bears, you got to look at this and say, well, we know we're going to have 2 really good draft picks. And we may have the 1 and 2 pick in the draft. Right now, at the season end today, they would. Because not only do they have their own draft pick, but they also have the pick from the Carolina Panthers, where the Panthers moved up to 1, and they gave their next first-round pick to the Chicago Bears for this upcoming NFL draft. And if I'm running the Bears, when you bring in a new president and you're trying to finally turn this thing around, I'll just ask you the simple question. Have you seen enough from Eberflus? Have you seen enough from Ryan Poles? So you got to give credit to Poles for getting DJ Moore in there and getting more picks and trading down out of the number one spot. But have you seen enough from that team and from that brain power to say they're going to get it right if given another opportunity? And for Eberflus, I can't feel confident. And for Ryan Poles, I don't know if he should lose his job, but I don't like bringing in a new head coach and then keeping the same general manager. I think that's a very messy situation. So if I'm the Bears, you basically have to build from the ground up once again. And you may have some more pieces there, but you don't have a lot to work with. But at least you're going to get 2 top 5 draft picks because the Panthers stink and the Bears stink. They're probably going to get the first and second pick of the draft. And if I'm the Bears, I would kind of, at the end of this year, obviously I've made it clear I would bring in a new head coach and a new general manager, but I'm trading Justin Fields too. Because Justin Fields, this is now his 3rd year in the NFL, and you got to figure out if you're going to give him an extension. And that's what makes this so tricky. Right now, Justin Fields has not earned an extension. Now, he may be able to go on to another team, and he may be able to have more success somewhere else in a better situation. But I haven't seen enough from Fields to say, yes, he's a franchise quarterback that I would feel comfortable in a few years giving him a contract extension. So this is a perfect time for the Bears organization to reset, where you trade the quarterback, you get some more draft capital, because there will be a market for Justin Fields. There will be a lot of people that say, the Bears have messed up quarterbacks forever, and we're going to go trade because we believe we could fix Justin Fields. Like, look at what Sam Darnold did go for when the Jets gave up on him, and look at what Joe Douglas was able to get for Sam Darnold. So there will be, bare minimum, you're getting a second-round pick for Justin Fields, just for starters. So use more draft capital, acquire as much draft capital as possible, and you got to go out there and you got to hire the right GM and coach, and it's a 3-year plan. Where year 1, it's a wash, year 2, improve, and year 3, you got to go be a playoff team. And look at, like, the Texans. I know that they kept the same GM, but they never really hired a coach that they believed in. But the Texans had all these draft picks that they accumulated. And I'm not saying that the Texans are ready to go win a Super Bowl right now. They're even going to be a playoff team this year. But the Texans acquired as many picks as they can. I know it's easier for them to say goodbye to Deshaun Watson because of what happened off the field. But you got to remember, even before all the off-the-field allegations came out that were heinous and disgusting, Deshaun Watson was done with the Texans anyway. So they were able to capitalize off those draft picks, accumulate as many draft picks as possible, be bad for 2 years, and then they made their move. And they got C.J. Stroud, Will Anderson. They got a heck of a coach in DeMeco Ryans from all things that we could consider and see so far. And now through the first 4 weeks of the season, they're sitting there at 2-2. And before the season, I bet you more people would have expected more out of the Bears than they would have with the Houston Texans. So you got to blow this whole thing up if you're Chicago. You got to get rid of the 2 guys in Poles and Eberflus. You're going to have to trade and get back assets for Justin Fields, and you got to be as bad as possible, win 1 game or something this year, and you got to get Caleb Williams and then maybe like Marvin Harrison Jr. and hope that these coaches don't mess him up or the GM doesn't mess it up, and that's a pretty good starting foundation in addition to having DJ Moore in that wide receiving room to begin with. And, maybe you just bring in 1 guy. Like, I've thrown out this name a lot. I don't know how much Jim Harbaugh, I think Jim Harbaugh wants to stay at Michigan, but he doesn't want to stay at Michigan under these standards with the NCAA going after him. And if Michigan wins a national championship, or if Michigan gets to the national championship game this year, we know the last 2 years Harbaugh's had NFL interests. 2 years ago, he did an 11-hour interview with the Vikings, and he didn't get the job. They went with Kevin O'Connell, and he knew Kwesi Adofo-Mensah from their days together in San Francisco, who's now running the Minnesota Vikings. And last year, he begged to get an NFL job. No one took him up on it. But if you're the Bears, and Jim Harbaugh played for your organization, and if control's a big thing for Jim Harbaugh, if you're getting rid of the GM and then also the head coach, you could have Harbaugh do 2 jobs at once, or have Harbaugh bring in someone that he trusts to be the GM. And that'd be a pretty damn good starting foundation if you have Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Jim Harbaugh. Be much better than whatever crap the Bears have right now. So that's what I would do this year if I'm running the Bears. I'm trying to get Jim Harbaugh to join my team. I'm getting the first pick, the second pick, and I'm trading whatever assets that you could get for Justin Fields. Now, if Justin Fields were to be traded, where could be a good trade destination? I don't think New England makes that trade. Mac Jones isn't the guy, but I think they go back into the draft. You look at the AFC West. If I'm the Broncos, with how the way Russell Wilson, I know people are like, oh, Russell Wilson's stats are good, but I just don't believe in Russ anymore. Would you maybe want to, sell low? And this could be a situation where you don't have to give up, I don't know what you have to give up. Definitely a second-round pick if you're the Broncos. But then you have Justin Fields come in if it still doesn't work out with Russell Wilson. The Raiders, I don't trust Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't think Aiden O'Connell is the guy. So maybe you bring in Justin Fields and you team him up with Josh McDaniels. In the AFC North, is Kenny Pickett the guy? If you asked me a few years ago, Fields or Pickett, I would say Justin Fields. Inside the AFC South, could it be Tennessee if this is it for Ryan Tannehill there? But they did just draft Will Levis and also Malik Willis in the last 2 years. You go inside the NFC East, if Sam Howell's not the guy, the Commanders are a good situation. NFC West, not really a landing spot. Murray's there, or they're going to be picking a quarterback in the draft. The Rams, Stafford, if he's back next year, he's not going anywhere. Seattle's a good destination, but you got Geno Smith there, and the 49ers are rocking with Brock. I'll tell you, you look inside the NFC South, be a good destination? The Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons are probably the best destination for Justin Fields because you have a team that has a lot of talent, and you have a team that's ready to win. And when I mean ready to win, not ready to win a Super Bowl, but should be good enough to win that NFC South. And it may not be this year because of who the quarterback is in Desmond Ridder. But you have Drake London, you have Kyle Pitts, you have Tyler Algier, you have Bijan Robinson, you have an offensive-minded coach in Arthur Smith, and no one really ever thought that Desmond Ridder is going to be that dude. He just needed to be a game manager this year. And we know Fields knows the Georgia area. You throw him in as the quarterback of Atlanta. Heck, when they picked Kyle Pitts, I'm pretty sure that was the same draft class. There's people advocating for them to draft Justin Fields. So you take a look at Justin Fields. If you could give up a second-round pick and then some to go get him, if I'm Atlanta, I would absolutely consider that. But I don't think that's going to be a deal that gets made in season. But if you do fire the coach and you do that after this Thursday night game, maybe they'll just blow the entire thing up in the middle of the season. I do, think the best time to get the most you can for Justin Fields would be after this year. However, if they keep on putting performances like this together, maybe the stock does get lower than what I would think. What's a good destination for Justin Fields? And do you actually buy that there's a chance Matt Eberflus could be coaching his final game this week for the Bears? 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. We will take a break. When we come on back, should the Bengals rest Joe Burrow after their just 1-3 putrid start? But first, do you ever feel like your brain is getting in its own way? Like you know what you should do, what's good for you, but you just can't do it. Therapy helps you figure out what's holding you back so you can work for yourself instead of against yourself. Sometimes it's just a matter of talking things out so you can get a better understanding of what may be standing in your way, even if that's you. We've all been through some unpredictable times over the past few years, and it's not a sign of weakness to ask for help. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Make your brain your friend with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/Gelb today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Gelb, GELB.
You're in a 4-minute break. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
The Zach Gelb Show is on the air across the nation on CBS Sports Radio.
Zach, thanks for taking my call. I have to admit you are the best there is at what you do. That's why I'm calling to ask your opinion about this.
Here's Zach Gelb.
All righty, this is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. So there's a big debate right now with the Bengals sitting in there at 1-3 on if they should play Joe Burrow this weekend as they're out in the desert going up against the Arizona Cardinals. And then after that, they do have the Seattle Seahawks before a bye week. And we know a month before the season started when you had the initial calf injury for Joe Burrow, it was his teammate, Jamar Chase, who's never afraid to speak his mind, as we're seeing the last few weeks. He said he doesn't want to see Joe Burrow for the first few weeks because he kind of made the point, we know just as long as we have Joe at the end of the year, we're going to have enough to go compete and contend. And at the time, I heard those comments from Jamar Chase, and I was like, it's okay to say that, but if he's healthy enough to play, I'm going to gather that the Bengals are going to play, and just knowing Joe Burrow a little bit, that Joe Burrow is going to play as well. But you've seen it the last 4 weeks. Like, people are like, what's going on with the Bengals? Joe Burrow just doesn't feel comfortable. And you could see the mobility right now. Not that he's like the quickest quarterback in the world, but he can move around the pocket. The mobility is just not there because of this calf injury. And it re-aggravated it earlier in the season. And now you're sitting here where they're 1-3, and they're not even like showing up at all offensively. They had 3 points. I know Cleveland's been a house of horrors for them, but they had 3 points in week 1 up against Cleveland. The Ravens, they were never really in control of that game, and the final score doesn't reflect the way that you feel about that game, and they lost them by 3, 27-24, but the Ravens were by far and away the better team. Now, you beat the Rams. Am I supposed to throw a parade because you win a sloppy, low-scoring game against the Rams? No. And then this past week up against Tennessee Titans, where Tennessee is not a better team than Cincinnati on paper, Tennessee took you to school and you only put up 3 points. So we're looking at offensive performances this year for the Bengals. They scored in 3 out of the 4 games, 3 points, 3 points, and 19 points. We're talking about them not even scoring touchdowns here. And this offense and Joe Burrow, unfortunately, as great as he is, because of the injury, it's dug themselves in a hole, and I don't think they're going to be able to climb out of it. So you get to this decision of Joe Burrow is the franchise. Joe Burrow is by far and away the most important person on the Cincinnati Bengals. We've seen it. He gets hurt, then comes back, they're in a Super Bowl, and then also the next year they're in an AFC Championship game. And then this year he's hurt, and you have a team that looked like they were going to be a dominant force for the foreseeable future in Cincinnati. And this year, they're trending and missing the playoffs. Like, their season is on the line in these next 2 games, where they have Arizona and Seattle. I can't sit here and tell you that I feel great that they're going to win both these games. Like, I'll pick them to win this weekend to defeat Arizona, but I'm not going to pick them right now to defeat the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks right now have a better offense. And the Seahawks defense, and I like the Bengals defense, right, with Lou Anarumo, but the Seahawks defense did a wonderful job last week, and maybe that young secondary is starting to find their identity with Woolen and also Witherspoon that they drafted out of Illinois. So I think that they're heading, at best case scenario, to 2-4. And if you're 2-4 going into the bye week, you get Burrow rested up. It's not as if you get a good landing spot. You have the 49ers in Santa Clara, and then you're home up against the Buffalo Bills after that. So I think the Bengals would be lucky in these next 4 games if they could go 2-2. And let's just say if they could go 2-2, that puts them at 3-5. If they go 2-2, you could come back from 3-5. But to go to the original point, if Joe Burrow's not on the field, and if you rest Joe Burrow on the field, from getting on the field, and let's say you have him sit these next 2, and you have him healthy coming out of the bye, I think you're going to lose both those games to Arizona and Seattle. Like, if you don't play Burrow, they're going to 1-5. And am I going to sit here and tell you when Burrow comes back rested, they're going to beat both San Francisco and Buffalo? No, I won't. So I could understand why there's a debate to rest Joe Burrow. I could get that. But you know this, and we've already seen it. If the decision's up to Joe Burrow, there's no way Joe Burrow's going to say, I'm not playing. Because even though we would all understand it, in his mind, it's coming off as I could play, even though I'm hurt right now. But if I don't play, it's me quitting on my team. And I don't think a lot of people would view it that way, that Burrow's throwing in the towel in the season. But I do believe that Burrow, with how intense of a competitor he is, and the brief interactions that I've had with him when I got to spend 2 days with him for a few hours when he won the Heisman Trophy on that Friday and Saturday in New York City, this dude is just so cool. He's calm, but he's just so confident too. And he knows his team needs him right now. And it just once again shows you the importance. And I don't want to say it's the most important position on the roster, but it is a very important position, the backup quarterback. Like, if the Bengals had, let's just say, Jameis Winston, or if the Bengals had a serviceable backup, it's probably a different conversation. Because I could trust that Jameis Winston with this Bengals team could go out there up against the Arizona Cardinals and win the game. But when your backup quarterback is Jake Browning, well, did you even care about the backup quarterback position? And I know that you could say, well, if Joe Burrow gets injured, our season's over and we're screwed anyway. Sure. But it's not necessarily Joe Burrow being out for the entire season. It's someone needing to come in off the sideline out of a relief role and just be able to prevent the ship from sinking. And the Bengals just didn't pay attention to the backup quarterback position. And that's a problem. Like, I was there in Philadelphia when Carson Wentz got injured. And I know it's later in the season. Eagles are humming. They had the number 1 overall seed, all that. And the day when Carson Wentz got injured, everyone thought the season was over. Heck, I remember doing shows in Philadelphia where people were calling me after, I think it was against the Raiders where Nick Foles didn't play well. And they had to, they just pulled out the victory, and then they played him for a drive up against the Cowboys. I can't remember who the corner was, but he had a big pick six late or a big fumble recovery late up against the Raiders, whatever the story is. And I did shows in Philadelphia before that Eagles playoff run. Because remember, there was a bye week, and then it was the divisional round up against Atlanta, where I had callers saying the third-string quarterback, Nate Sudfeld, should start over Nick Foles. But the Eagles knew that Nick Foles was a competent backup. And I know Nick Foles had that 1 year in Philly with Chip Kelly where he had 27 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. But Nick Foles coming in as a backup quarterback saved the Eagles season. And Nick Foles played the 2 greatest games of his life up against the Minnesota Vikings and then 2 weeks later up against the Patriots. So you don't have to break your back to get a backup quarterback. But the backup quarterback position is very important in the NFL. And you're seeing it with the Bengals now. Because if you leave it in the hands of Joe Burrow, or if you leave it in the hands of almost any player, the player is going to say, I'm going to play. That's just what players do. Now, if Joe Burrow didn't have a contract, maybe it's a different story. But he got the contract. He got the big money. And that's a guy, money or not, he wants to win. He wants to be on the field. He wants to be competitive. But if I was Zach Taylor, or if I was Tobin running the Browns, running the Bengals, and I had a competent backup in there, maybe I would say to Joe, rest up. And we can play the backup. We'll split these 2 games, and we'll come out of the bye. And yeah, it's not a great start, but you'll be healthy. But the Bengals don't have that luxury, because if Jake Browning's playing this weekend against the Cardinals, I can't sit here and tell you that I really like their chances of winning the game, and it's not as if the Arizona Cardinals are this ridiculous team. So should the Bengals just say, man, the season's not going where we want it to, and I'll have to bite the bullet here and take the 2 losses, but, maybe we'll get our quarterback healthy and then go in for the second half of the season. Would you rest Joe Burrow this week? I could understand why you would say that. I just don't think it's going to happen. There's one of those conversations. There's always a should and what will happen, where you could say maybe they should rest Joe Burrow. But will they rest Joe Burrow? I don't think Joe Burrow will be on board with it. And really, who are the Bengals going to as the backup quarterback? Because Jake Browning is not going to win games here or win a game in the NFL. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. We'll come on back. We'll talk a little bit about the Steelers. And is another Barbara Bottini situation happening again, this time with the offensive coordinator of the Pittsburgh Steelers and Matt Canada? We'll discuss on the other side. One more segment to play right here. Zach Gelb on CBS Sports Radio. Let's toss it over to Rich Ackerman, who's wearing a very nice blue shirt, and he has the latest CBS Sports Radio update.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
Well, it's the Rays that are feeling blue right now. Top of the 9th, they're just 2 outs away, or a couple of outs away from being eliminated as they trail the Rangers by a score of 7-1 today. The Rays with just 1 run in the 2 games so far. Texas broke out with a 4-run third, getting home runs from Adolis Garcia and Evan Carter, who reached base in each of his first 6 postseason plate appearances. Another gem from Nathan Eovaldi, who pitched into the 7th, gave up 1 run on 6 hits and struck out 8. Right now in Minnesota, the Twins trying to put away the Blue Jays, but right now they are scoreless in the top half of the 4th. Still to come today, the 2 National League games as the Phillies try to take another step closer to getting back to the World Series, hosting the Marlins after taking the series opener, and the Brewers needing to extend their season with a win as they'll host the Diamondbacks after falling in last night's opener. It'll be Freddie Peralta going against Cy Young candidate Zach Gallen. The Broncos set to release veteran Randy Gregory, and also Kenny Pickett saying after practice today he's good to go Sunday after dealing with a bone bruise this week in his knee. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Hey, it's Amy Lawrence. Be sure to listen to CBS Sports Radio at home. Just ask Alexa to play CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
this is Howie.
And this is Nick.
From the Backstreet Boys.
And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Rangers are a few outs away, 2 outs away from punching their ticket to the next round of the playoffs. Got the nice job by Jordan Montgomery last night. They're up 7-1 here in the bottom of the 9th up against Tampa Bay. There was no Rays fans. Did you see that? I know you're a big baseball guy, Stuart Kovacs. I saw that photo right before first pitch. You would think that was like a minor league ballpark with none of those fans in attendance.
Yeah, it's almost as bad as the Yankees' last home game of the season where they had a few hundred people and they said the Yankees had 41,000, which we know did not happen.
But that's a little bit different. That's a Yankee team that their season was over 2 months ago. I know that the Rays don't have this big, crazy, raucous fan base, but you can't fill the Trop or even get some butts in the seats for a playoff game?
It's pretty bad. That's as low as it gets for a team that's had a really good season.
And it's kind of sports karma that they're about to drop both these games to the Rangers and they're going to be going home. So I would say that there would be an overreaction here from Rays fans, but I don't even think they really exist outside of the great Dickie V, and nothing but the good well wishes to Dick Vitale. But outside of that, I don't know how many Rays fans actually do exist. Rays and Twins. Twins got the victory. Jays and Twins. The Twins got the victory yesterday. That is now 0-0 between the Blue Jays and the Twins. Diamondbacks and Brewers. Brewers had the early lead yesterday. Diamondbacks come back. That will have first pitch at 7 p.m. Eastern. And then the Marlins and the Phillies will be at 8 p.m. Eastern. Phillies trying to sweep the Marlins out of the postseason. But anyway, it is time to answer our Ask the Pros question of the day, brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Jeff in Pittsburgh asks, Zach, did you see the Matt Canada burner theory? And do we have another Barbara Bottini? You could submit a question by tweeting at CBS Sports Radio or at Zach Gelb, ZACHGELB, using the hashtag #AskThePros. Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. So I know that we live in a gotcha world now, and we're all hoping that this story is true because it would be such an inane thing to do and such an idiotic thing to do. But, folks, I have to defend Matt Canada here. I just don't think that Matt Canada is dumb enough to create a burner account. And I know you in the screenshot, you don't get to see the full email. The way that this works is you see someone that's getting blasted all over the country, and then there's one account or a few accounts that is defending this person, and then you could go, forgot the password, and it goes, oh, is this your email? Fill in the blank for the rest of the email. And it starts off with an M, and then it's an ad, and it looks like an S, like it could be Steelers.com or Steelers.net, whatever it is. Just seeing that. And I know that we live in a world now where something doesn't have to be true for it to be talked about, it to be tweeted about, for it to be written about. But I have a really tough time with me believing and being able to actually process that Matt Canada would be this dumb. And I was in Philly, and I'll never forget this, when you found out that Brian Colangelo, Lion Brian Colangelo, as I used to call him, was running the Sixers, and either it was his wife and Barbara Bottini or it was him that was defending the tweets that were going after her husband for the way that he wasn't running the organization the right way. And I'll never forget it. I forget where the article was, so I apologize for that. But there was an article that dropped that outed Brian Colangelo, that Brian Colangelo or his wife had 4 burner accounts. And I was in the Philadelphia media, and I was young, early stages of my career. And I go, let me check these accounts, if any of these accounts follow me. And I'll never forget, there was a photo of a cat. And I'm not a big cat person. Let me be clear about that. But with that being said, if you just have a photo of a cat in your profile picture, I get a little skeptical of you, especially if it's a cartoon cat. And there was a cartoon cat on one of these Twitter accounts. So I'm going through all these Twitter accounts, and I'm like, oh, this one doesn't follow me, this one doesn't follow me, this one doesn't follow me. But then the picture of the cartoon cat ended up following me. So this lady, Barbara Bottini, or Lion Brian Colangelo, which shouldn't give a rat's ass what Zach Gelb was saying, but they were following me because either I was critical of Brian Colangelo or I was involved in the Philadelphia media scene, and they were trying to keep tabs on social media. I never understand two things here. You understand that you're in the public spotlight. I'm not saying it's easy to be in the public spotlight. There's a lot of heinous messages that get sent your way, and even though it's done with good intentions, your loved ones try to be there and support you. And they try to go after the people that are going after you. So the intentions may be good. But if I was at a position of power like being, I don't know, an NBA general manager, you got to be able to have some thick skin. And you got to be able to ignore the criticism. And if you can't ignore the criticism, you can't instruct your wife or have your wife go after people, or you maybe go after people as well on social media. And especially if you're not going to hide behind another account and not make it be your name. And that, to me, is something that if I was an athlete or if I was a general manager, I would tell my family, you do not go after people that are going after me, because you never win those battles. And in this situation with Matt Canada, my jaw would literally hit the floor if we find out that this is true. And if it is true, which I don't think it is, Mike Tomlin would have no choice but to let Matt Canada go. Because you can't be the offensive coordinator of an NFL team, and he's been bad at his job, and the Steelers are regressing, and going after on your company email. Like, this is the dumbest thing ever. I can't believe we're actually talking about this. You can't be going after fans that are the consumer of your product just because the fans are annoyed with you. So in this situation, I'm going to give, and maybe I'll hold my nose when I do so because this does smell like a messy situation. I am going to give Matt Canada the benefit of the doubt. I think this is something that Steeler fans are pushing because Steeler fans want Matt Canada out as the offensive coordinator. And when you're a passionate sports fan, when you are a sports fan that wants to see your football team do well, you'll do anything and you'll concoct some crazy story to try and expose and try and out your OC. But in this case, I just don't believe it. I really don't. So appreciate the question, Jeff in Pittsburgh. But like Stu, I know we've seen it happen once. And maybe it's kind of like the 2023 thing to do. But when you saw this story last night, was any part of you saying, maybe Matt Canada is this dumb, and maybe he's basically asking to get fired and allegedly going back and forth with fans on this burner account?
Yeah, I mean, I thought about it for a second, but once you think about it a little more, he can't be dumb enough to do that. Can he? I really don't think he is.
Well, I don't think he's dumb enough to do that. He's a bad offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
I don't believe Tomlin's going to fire him in season. He hasn't yet. I don't think that this is going to happen in season unless it's, like the final 2-3 weeks of the season. If you finally give the fans something to chew on after them imploring you the entire season. We've seen, though, dumb things happen before in sports. We're like Manti Te'o. You're the star linebacker of Notre Dame. I know that it was an elaborate plan, but how do you get catfish, right? You can sleep with any woman that you want on the Notre Dame campus. And then it's like, okay, you have the Barbara Bottini situation. Those are all outliers. Those are 1, 2 in a million chances of ever happening. And just because it's happened in the past, I'm not saying it will never happen again. But just because the emails with the bunch of stars in them without having the blanks filled in may look like it could be his email account doesn't mean that it actually is. And with the Barbara Bottini thing, it was like a phone number that was associated to it that was in a public press release. That's how they nabbed her. If you're going to go after people, if you're going to say, I'm Matt Canada, or I'm Matt Canada's wife, or daughter, son, like whatever it is, there's no way you're using your Steelers email or your father's, whatever the relationship is, Steelers email. Like, if you want to be dumb and go down that road, that's one thing. You could be dumb and you could go down that road of, I'm going to get petty. I'm going to jump into the messages and the cesspool that is Twitter, or now I guess they call it X, and you're going to go after all these people. but make up an email account. Like, do like Stuart Kovacs 3456 at gmail.com. You can't do matt.canada@steelers.com. There's just, even if you want to go down that road, you can't be that stupid. And I did see that Florio floated out there, and he may have already debunked this, that the way that the Steelers do their in their email, it doesn't line up. So Matt Canada, I don't know if Matt Canada has talked to the media yet this week. Usually they make the offensive coordinator available. Wait for that doozy of a press conference. Hey, Matt, Andrew Filipponi here from 93.7 The Fan in Pittsburgh. You know we all want you fired as the offensive coordinator of the Pittsburgh Steelers, but are you the biggest moron on the planet? Did you actually go on out there and tweet fans with an account that's linked to your Steelers email? Oh, man. That's going to be a highly anticipated press conference. There's no doubt about that. But in terms of on the field, the Steelers got to get better. And Kenny Pickett is now injured. And you look at the Steelers team, they're sitting in at 2-2, but it's tough to kind of draw optimism with the Steelers right now. Because you look around that team, Najee Harris looks like he's not a fit for the Steelers. Sure, George Pickens is really good. We'll see how long Kenny Pickett is out. Deontay Johnson is hurt. Defensively, we know they have a good defense, but how many times have we seen this story in the NFL where a team has a really good defense, but when the offense does nothing consistently, it doesn't matter how great of a defense that you have, barring the fact that you're like the early 2000 Ravens, if your offense can't deliver in some capacity, you could have a great defense. It's going to mean nothing. Like, look at the Jets last year. The Jets had a really damn good defense last year. And the Jets defense only was able to get them to 7 wins because you had no quarterback play. So the Steelers had to fix the offense. And we've now seen Mike Tomlin and Bill Belichick for really the first times in their careers with New England and Pittsburgh get serious blowback and serious pushback. They're both being stubborn right now. Because, Canada should be fired as the offensive coordinator. He should have been brought back, but Mike Tomlin is showing his loyalties. Bill Belichick should have altered his approach, and Bill Belichick should have got a legit number one weapon for Mac Jones this year. He didn't, and the offense stinks. But you look at the Steelers team, you have a great defense. The schedule's not impossible, but they'll lose to the Ravens this weekend. They come out of the bye. They play the Rams. They play the Jaguars. They play Tennessee. Like, the Rams and Tennessee aren't great teams, but the Steelers aren't a good team. And Jacksonville's been a little bit underwhelming through the first few weeks of the season because I thought their offense would be better. I think you're going to see more of the same that you saw last year with the Steelers, where last year, remember, they got off to that ugly start, and then towards the end of the year, they looked like a formidable football team. Mike Tomlin's good enough to win enough games in this league to not make it look like it's a clown show. But eventually, you're going to get burned if you keep on going back to that game of, alrighty, I'll start off slow, and then towards the end of the season, we'll put some lipstick on a pig. Because the Steelers didn't even make the playoffs last year. It's not as if the Steelers had this remarkable season. They just played well, and they played good football at the end of the stretch, and they were able to finish with a record that was respectable, that created optimism, that made people actually believe that the Steelers are going to be something of note this year and be a decent, above average football team and maybe a playoff team. But if this is going to be the formula year in and year out with the Steelers, kind of similar with the Patriots, where it's slow starts and then good finish, or if the Patriots start off great and then they're terrible down the stretch, where are these teams actually going? Like, we look at two great brands of the Steelers and the Patriots. Where are they going? They're going into a big draft conversation, really. Because these teams, like the Steelers have a great defense. Patriots have a good defense. Steelers don't have much on offense. Pickens is good. I don't know what Pickett is. The Pats have nothing on offense. What direction are you going into? Because when you win as much as those two teams have, the fans' mentality is going to be to win once again. And these two teams are nowhere close to winning a Super Bowl. All righty. That is the Zach Gelb Show on a very busy Wednesday edition. We do appreciate you for taking some time today to listen to us across all of our great local CBS Sports Radio affiliates, Sirius XM Channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and also streaming on YouTube. And I appreciate Mark Stoops for joining us earlier, the head football coach at Kentucky. Big game coming up this weekend against number 1 Georgia. Appreciate Coach taking a few moments right before he's ready to get out on the practice field. He said he wasn't happy with the practice yesterday. So, man, hope those Kentucky players show up as Kentucky's undefeated. They're ranked 20th, and they'll have number 1 Georgia this weekend in Athens. And also like to thank Omar Vizquel for joining us in the 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time hour. If you missed any of those conversations, go to my Twitter page, @ZachGelb, press the follow button, link in the bio to find all those archive segments. You could also use the Odyssey rewind function for the next 24 hours. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts. Stu, Center, great job as always. Talk to you tomorrow, everybody. We out. Bye-bye. Peace.
You're in a 5-minute break.